right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Ugranic is sparing with you guys on what continues to be in absolutely crazy times. So obviously yesterday Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and today we still don't have the killer. And that is a bit shocking. So we're gonna talk a lot about that because that is awfully strange. And then we're gonna have the reactions of Democrats and Republicans to what's been happening. And then a little bit later in the program, of course, we're gonna do other stories as well, including Jerry Seinfeld being weirdly racist in a way that I did not expect. So that's super disappointing. All right, we'll get to all that. Anna, you're in New York. I know you're gonna be on CNN tonight. Everybody needs to check that out at 10 o'clock Eastern. So let's do it. What do you got for us?
Well, I wanted to start off with the latest in the investigation to find the suspect who's still at large. So let's get into the details and where things stand at this moment. The shooter who murdered Charlie Kirk is still at large, and a manhunt continues to be underway. But today, the FBI did release 2 photos of who they believe is a person of interest. Those are the images that you're looking at right now. Obviously, the shooter or at least the person they believe is a person of interest is male. And the former FBI assistant director, Chris Swecker, said something kind of interesting on CNN today in regard to the images that were released. I want to share that perspective with you just so you have a more comprehensive, perspective on what people are saying, who the suspect may be. Take a look.
There's one thing that I think is very inconsistent, and it bothers me, and that is that photo that you're looking at right now. That's the photo of this guy blending in. The description that the FBI put out, the description you just heard on that radio, was a description of someone who was in tactical gear, fully kitted out, it sounded like. Now, granted, he could have hit all that stuff, but that hasn't been found. So I'm not sure that, there's an inconsistency there that could actually come back later at a trial to be what I would call exculpatory material.
To be quite frank, so far, this investigation, the attempt to find the suspect at large, I don't know, Cenk, it really bothers me that this person was able to carry out this assassination in an event with thousands of people in broad daylight. A single shot to the neck killed Charlie Kirk. And this person so far has been able to get away with it. And so I've got a lot more details, including the weapon that authorities have found that they allege belongs to the shooter. But before I give you all those details, I just want to get your initial thoughts.
Yeah, so this is super strange. So normally what amateurs do is they go in at close distance and they fire a whole bunch of shots, right? Because they don't want to miss, and they're usually mentally unbalanced. They very rarely go on a rooftop, plan it out meticulously, take only one shot, be absolutely sure that it was a kill shot, and then get down, get away, maybe switch out of fatigues. We don't find the fatigues. Then later, we hilariously are told that, oh, look at this, we found a rifle in the middle of the woods. It says transgender ideology. Does it? Does it? Well, we're gonna get to some of those answers in a little bit as well. So, no, none of this looks like an amateur. And so there's debate about is it easy to hit someone from 200 yards? Do you aim for the neck? Do you not aim for the neck, etc.? But I think that that's an important and interesting conversation, but that's only part of the conversation. The other parts are all these things. He's in fatigues, no, he's not, right? We got him, no, we didn't. But the bottom line, Anna, as we sort all this out, and we're gonna give you all the details here, is, are they going to catch him or not? Because if they catch him and we find out who it is and it's a rational explanation, no problem, great, that's awesome. Bring him to justice and we find out what happened. If they don't catch him, you're telling me one shot, he makes a clean getaway, and he wasn't a professional, he was a random psycho? No, I won't believe that. And so they better find him.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And justice, of course, is the most important thing here. But also really fully understanding the motive is incredibly important. I mean, obviously we've had issues in this country with political divisions. And it's inspiring people to say some pretty scary things in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's killing. And so I'm worried about where we are as a nation. But let me give you some more details about where the investigation currently is. So state and federal officials claim that they have tracked the shooter's movements and recovered what they believe is his firearm, which he allegedly used to shoot Kirk from a nearby roof at Utah Valley University. So this was during the event at Utah Valley University. The Utah Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bo Mason says that the shooter arrived on campus at 11:52 a.m. local time, appear to be of college age, and the images that were just released by the FBI do seem to indicate that the individual was of college age, and that the individual also blended well on campus, blended in well. Now, the gunman went through stairwells and climbed up to a roof to the location in which the shooting was carried out. There are videos of a person on the roof. I'm sure many of you have seen those videos. There's video of the person on the roof then running away after the shooting took place. Now, Mason said that after the shooting, we were able to track his movements as he moved to the other side of the building, jumped off of the building and fled off of the campus and into a neighborhood. Our investigators have worked through those neighborhoods, contacting anybody they can with doorbell cameras, and have thoroughly worked through those communities trying to identify any leads. So this is insane. I mean, when you really consider the fact that this took place at a public event where a ton of people are attending, when you take into consideration the fact that there are cameras literally everywhere in every community, every neighborhood, every public place, the fact that we don't have a suspect apprehended yet is beyond concerning. Now, according to FBI investigators also collected and will analyze a footwear impression and also a palm print and forearm imprints. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the weapon, Cenk. So authorities found a high-powered bolt-action rifle they believe was the weapon used to shoot Kirk from afar. Authorities say that, and this was reported by the Wall Street Journal, authorities say that phrases related to cultural issues were found engraved on the rifle and ammunition. Now, we should proceed with caution because I was just reading a report indicating that authorities thought that some arrows that were engraved on the weapon or on the bullets indicated some sort of transgender ideology, and later they realized that wasn't the case. But here's what the Wall Street Journal reported as of this morning. The older model .30 caliber hunting rifle was discovered in the woods, wrapped in a towel with a spent cartridge still in the chamber. There were also 3 unspent rounds in the magazine, all with wording on them. But again, investigators found the ammunition engraved with expressions of transgender and anti-fascist ideology inside the rifle. But again, the note of caution I'm referring to was mentioned in the New York Times. A senior law enforcement official with direct knowledge of the investigation cautioned that the report had not been verified by ATF analysis, did not match other summaries of the evidence, and might turn out to have been misread or misinterpreted. So again, things are still very much up in the air. Considering Charlie Kirk's political ideology, it is not far-fetched that this was a politically motivated assassination. I want to be clear about that. I'm not just trying to pour cold water on it, but I am saying this. This investigation so far has been abysmal, absolutely abysmal. And it's because of the endless contradicting information that's coming out. You know, they have a suspect apprehended. Now they don't have a suspect apprehended. It's a person of interest. Now this person isn't a person of interest. You know, the very first thing that happened immediately after the shooting was a video started circulating online of an older man being apprehended by officials, by law enforcement. That person was not a suspect. So look, I'm worried. I'm really, really worried. And the longer this takes, the more violent rhetoric I'm seeing online. And what's more concerning is when you don't have a suspect and you're unable to find a clear motive, that also, of course, furthers some conspiratorial thoughts. And I'm also seeing that online. Cenk.
Yeah. No, look, I'm super suspicious. And I look, to me, the most important part of all of this other than obviously the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, is I don't trust our government at all anymore.
I know.
So okay, and this has not helped 1%. It's been terrible because, okay, to your point, Anna. Okay, so we caught the guy, we didn't catch the guy. Kash Patel put that out. You can't put that out in a tweet that you caught him. Like we read it on air because that's the director of the FBI saying we caught the guy. And then a couple hours later, it's like, sorry, we didn't catch him at all. All right, so that's all right. That's weird. He's in fatigues. No, he's not. That's also weird. We couldn't find any trace of him except conveniently this rifle with the bullets and the casings, and it says transgender and Antifa. I mean, it sounds like an 80-year-old who's like, what are the kids saying online? What should we say about the left? Oh, I am a believer in transgender ideology. And I am Antifa, that's really? Okay, Antifa, that's a little old. Okay, so conveniently, that's the only thing you found. And then the New York Times says, oh, by the way, that might not be true at all. What's going on here? So, like, again, if they catch the guy alive and we find out who did it, then it restores a little bit of faith in the government. So do I know that they're gonna catch him? No, I don't know. Obviously, I'm very, very much rooting that they do. If they don't catch him, guys, then I lose all faith in the government. What the F is going on here? So, I mean, Kash Patel, yeah, sure, he's a clown, right? And that's why you shouldn't put clowns as the head of the FBI. He also weirdly took off the lead FBI person in Salt Lake City just a little while back. Why did he get rid of her? That's super weird, okay? And then now, they said college age, by the way. Yeah, he could be college aged. Or he could be 30. And it's like they put you in a certain mindset when they give a description. For example, they could have said, oh, the one thing we know for sure is he's white male. So that gets you in the mindset of white male. Now, I don't care what mindset you're in, right? So the fact that he's a white male probably has almost nothing to do with it, right? But why did you say college age? Like we see the pictures anyway. Like that's the best description you have on a college campus filled with tens of thousands of students. I don't know. Yeah. All of this is super weird.
And to your point, Cenk, I hadn't really thought about that description, the college age description, but now that you bring that up, there were people there who probably saw things and might provide leads or tips to authorities. And so when you come out with a description that's so specific like that, if someone saw something a little strange, they might think, oh, well, this person wasn't college aged, or oh, this person actually wasn't, a young white male. So maybe this wasn't anything suspicious. Like, I just feel like so far from what I have seen from this investigation, there's just foible after foible. I feel like they're bungling it. And it makes me angry. Like, it really makes me angry for a number of different reasons. Someone getting killed in broad daylight like that, a political figure getting killed in broad daylight like that, that is freaking terrifying. And this person absolutely needs to be brought to justice. And the fact that this investigation seems like one fumble after another, this country was already having issues with the American public having little to no faith in our institutions. And honestly, this investigation has not inspired much confidence. And look, Cenk, I'm gonna just keep it real, okay? For anyone out there who is cruel enough and quite frankly, stupid enough to celebrate a political assassination because you had political disagreements with Charlie Kirk. Well, think about what kind of culture and what kind of environment you are rooting for in this country, because some of your favorite political commentators and pundits could be next.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm also seeing a ton of people on the right who are saying all sorts of scary things about how we're at war now. We're at war with the left, essentially egging on a culture of violence when in reality, we should be condemning violence. Absolutely condemning violence. We should be allowed to have political debates and political disagreements in a democracy without fear of suffering from any type of harm, physical harm, murder, anything. And so we're in a scary place, Cenk. That's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, so I have thoughts on that too. But first, one more thing about the details of this killing. if this person knew their getaway, got there at 8 minutes before the shooting, if I got that part of the story right, so got in, got out, that means they very likely staked the place out earlier. So look, if you're a cop and you're an investigator of this stuff, that's I'm sure elementary to you. And then you're gonna look at the video from the day before that, et cetera, until you figure out when he staked it out, right? Because you gotta see him on the roof at some point. I mean, it would be shocking if he didn't stake it out. How the hell would he know what his getaway plan is, et cetera, where he's gonna shoot him from, which roof to shoot from, what's the best angle, et cetera. He must have staked it out. So I don't blame them for not talking about it now because they might be doing an investigation, et cetera. But it just feels like there's a lot of things to look at, whether it's they're right, not just the smartphones, but all the Ring doorbells. Oh my God, they're gonna have so much video, right? Now, anytime anybody does anything, they're always on camera, right? And on top of that, you had to have him doing the stakeout earlier, so you have potentially video from that moment that helps you put together the pieces of the puzzle. So that's among the reasons why I say if they don't ever figure it out, and golly gee, he just got away, but trust us, he was some rando amateur who probably hated Charlie for his culture war issues or whatever. No, I don't believe you at all. At all, you'll never get me to believe that. And it's not a left-right thing, guys. So to Anna's point about some of the very small, I haven't seen any prominent people doing it, but some small folks, just people with relatively small followings, I mean, going out there and saying stupid things, right? Oh, celebrating, and it's stomach churning. If you're on the left, you're supposed to be for decency and humanity and morality and for the sanctity of our life, our rights, etc. I mean, it's not even close. The left I grew up in has compassion and empathy and doesn't go around making fun of people who got killed. That's insanity, right? So, and then on the right, you guys keep, it was the left wing's rhetoric, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later in the show, but it's left wing rhetoric, so that's why we have to go get the left. But wait, you're doing the rhetoric that you're blaming others for. So like everybody cool it, bring it down. Let's find the guy who did it. Let's bring him to justice. And if we don't, not only does that make it way more likely that he's a professional and not an amateur, right? But number two, for two reasons, somebody assassinated a media figure in this country and did it in a super professional way. And in that fact pattern, we didn't catch him. That's very concerning. Number two, he's still out there. Even if he's a rando, he's still out there. So we can't not catch him. It would be the most unacceptable thing that happened. And if anybody's playing stupid games, this isn't the 1960s. You're not gonna be able to go, oh yeah, there was a magic bullet. Yeah, a bunch of senators looked into it. It's not even 9/11. Oh yeah, a bunch of senators looked into it. They found all these passports and right on the rubble, and that didn't melt, but everything else, whatever. You're not gonna get away with any of that stuff. People are gonna, if the cops don't do it, we're gonna swarm and try to get all the videos, et cetera. Because it is not acceptable not to catch this guy. And so last thing on that, Anna, if we don't catch him, we're all in danger. And we're all in danger for a number of reasons. Not just because of the ensuing cycle of violence, not just because he's still out there, but it also means because our government either can't or won't protect us. And that's really scary.
I agree. Well, we got to take a break, but when we come back, I think it's worth talking a little bit about the divisions in America, what the right is saying, what the left is saying, and really take stock of where we are as a country. So stick around. We'll be right back.
So guys, I'm gonna read your comments. A lot of them are gonna be blind. I haven't read them yet. And then if I'm stating things that folks in the audience have said, remember, take it with a grain of salt. It's not our reporting, it's just random things that people are writing in. First, Hakuna Matata says, hey TYT fam, still a bit shocked today. Well, we all are. I woke up shocked, I'm still shocked right now. I can't believe it, I can't believe he's dead. It's one of the most stunning things that's ever happened in my lifetime. Mr. In Between says, apparently, this is what I'm referring to. This one I did read, and I don't know that this is true. It's great grain of salt, but we'll look into it. Apparently, there was a private plane that left Provo immediately after the shooting that left for Arizona. Somehow, it wasn't grounded. Okay, we'll definitely look into that, because if that's true, that's obviously weird, right? We're looking for things that are weird, out of place. Navinik says, hate to disappoint Laura Loomer, but the picture of the person of interest doesn't look like their name would be Abu Salim bin Mohammed, a Muslim jihadi Islamist extremist extraordinaire. But guys, so to that point, if we're talking about different places that the shooter might be from, remember there's many different countries that would love to sow division and hatred in this country. It's not just one, there's several. So I don't want to get into speculation on what that is, because it's really way premature and we have no idea. And maybe they catch the guy in an hour, then it's a way more standard explanation. Anyway, Hakuna Matata wrote in, scary that this guy isn't caught. What if he has other targets? Yeah, I mean, I wrote on social media today, they should double Trump's Secret Service. Why Trump? Because if it's a professional and they're trying to sow division, if you hit Trump, there's going to be an uncontrollable rage in this country, right? So they better make sure that Trump is safe. This isn't anything to do with politics, guys. This is to do with keeping this country together, okay? That would be, all right, anyway. John, I do hope they show receipts of what was written on these cartridges and they didn't put out false info. That would be inexcusable in a situation like this. I'm gonna be shocked if that story about the rifle and the imprints and stuff is true. Shocked. That's why when the New York Times did the follow-up of, oh, by the way, that's not at all proven, I was like, okay, that's exactly what I expected. But we'll see. Solidarity Works says, please, Cenk and Anna and all the TYT hosts, I'm telling all my favorite hosts, please only appear at indoor venues with metal detectors if possible, like some high school these days. Because craziness is getting to be too much, and I love and need you all's sanity. Thank you for that, we appreciate it. Obviously, we're trying to keep as safe as we can. Crazy Lit Asian said, with the qualifications for the director of the FBI being loyalty in the media, it's hard to tell if it's incompetence or malice, which is not good in this environment. Yep. Ejep5 says, I'm getting a crown on one of my molars while watching, and it's less painful than today's news. Charlie didn't deserve to die, and tapping down on free speech wouldn't be what it seems like he would have wanted. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a minute. A bunch of Republicans saying, oh, Charlie would have wanted you to limit freedom of speech. No, I don't think he would have. All right, well, I have a lot more to say about that, but we'll do in the middle of the story. We'll be right back. All right, guys, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. First of all, thank you to Liz Spree and Missy57 for signing up through tyt.com/join. That's great, we appreciate it. By the way, if you get the annual membership, you get a couple months off at tyt.com/join. I do want to tell you real quick about one of our sponsors. These guys help you save a lot of money and give you peace of mind. So Medicare is totally messy. It's as messy as politics is. So nearly impossible to wade through all the thousands of plans out there for Medicare. I know because I got my parents who were struggling through it. Chapter's the only Medicare advisor that actually compares every plan nationwide to find the right fit for your needs and preferences. And a lot of our viewers have been writing in saying it worked for them. Call them today at 707-TYT-HELP, 707-TYT-HELP. On average, they save people over $1,100 a year. It's also free and easy. They can review your options in under 20 minutes. So call them today at 707-TYT-HELP. And they really do help you. So we try to find sponsors that get you guys a lot of benefits and help, and they do. All right, so I want to thank one last set of people and then get back to the news, and that's people who just signed up on YouTube. Amro, Mohaseb, Joe, and Craig, you guys are awesome. We appreciate you. We can't do this kind of honest show without the support that you guys give through membership. All right, Anna, what's next?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the divisions in America and how they kind of have worsened following the killing of Charlie Kirk. So let's get into those details.
My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country.
That was President Donald Trump last night promising what reporter Ken Klippenstein has described as a counter-terrorism style response to the assassination of political activist Charlie Kirk. Now here's more of what the president had to say.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives.
Just want to note that political violence has unfortunately harmed people on both sides of the political aisle, and we can get into details about that. But I also want to note that the political ideology of the would-be assassin from Butler, Pennsylvania is not clear. Okay, so you can claim that he's on the left, but he was a registered Republican. Anyway, whatever. The most frustrating thing about this is the rhetoric used on both sides of the political aisle can get fiery. To pretend like that fiery rhetoric only exists on the left is a bit ridiculous. The other thing that's a bit ridiculous is, Trump kind of, his political rhetoric kind of ebbs and flows. So you'll hear him say things that I believe, as president of the United States, is incredibly responsible at a time when a leader should be trying to cool tensions and get the temperature down a little bit. But then he comes out and says things that seem to be a little more, I guess, calm. So for instance, it's worth noting that this morning, Trump kind of changed his tone and was preaching unity in a private message to CNBC's Joe Kernan. So let's take a quick look at that.
He's devastated about Charlie Kirk and said that what a guy, what a great individual. And he said he helped him greatly in the last election and thinks that Charlie Kirk could have been president someday. He was such a talented guy. Then he went on to say the country will heal. He's focused on what he has been focused on, and he says, I'm focused on winning. If the country wins, and if I do everything I can to help the country win, that we're all going to be able to come together again.
It would be nice to hear that message directly from the president's mouth, but that message was relayed by a friend of his. And this morning, actually later today, Trump changed his tone yet again. Here we are.
Not really. I'm really concerned for our country. We have a great country. We have a radical left group of lunatics out there, just absolute lunatics, and we're going to get that problem solved. I'm only concerned for the country.
So, Cenk, there's a lot of commentary on the right about the left, the radical left. They're already being blamed, even though we don't have a suspect apprehended, even though we don't have a clear motive. And I want to repeat, it is not far-fetched for the shooter to be left-wing. However, we don't know yet. And on top of that, Charlie Kirk was not someone who was on the far, far right, okay? In fact, he had a pretty significant group of haters who were on the right of him, who didn't like him and would harass him at public events. So I don't know who the shooter is. No one knows who the shooter is. No one knows what the motive is. But it doesn't help to have the president, left, which is, inspiring some folks, some public figures on the right to declare that we're at war, that they're at war with the left, right? That they want to attack the left. And I don't know, the rhetoric I'm hearing is really scary. But what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, so look, guys, we can do whataboutisms all day long. I'm just gonna say that list a couple from both sides so it's absurd to think that it's only one side, right? So the former lieutenant governor of North Carolina, who was Republican, ran for governor of North Carolina, said sometimes you just have to kill people. There was the Democratic legislators shot in Minnesota just a couple of weeks ago. There was the 4 Democratic legislators shot at in New Mexico a couple of years ago. There was the Paul Pelosi attack. There's all the manifesto shooters. On the other side, there's the guy who shot Steve Scalise. There's this now. There was a couple of shots at Trump, obviously, right? So, okay, I got it. There's way too much violence from both sides. So the answer to that isn't, it's the left's fault, it's the right's fault. The answer to that is everybody bring it down. We have to be a united country. If we so look, the great irony of the people that are now saying it was the left's rhetoric that's at fault. So it's the entire left and we have to go get them. Even if that were true, look at what you're saying. You're making the same mistake that you're charging them of making by saying it's all of them, we have to get them, etc. So whereas here on the Young Turks, we've now said it, I don't know, hundreds of times, thousands of times, where when there's a shooter or somebody crazy that says something nuts, etc., they do not represent all Trump voters if they're on the right, and they don't represent all Biden, Kamala Harris, etc. voters if they're on the left. So that should be obvious, but oftentimes these politicians and media figures obfuscate that. They don't want that to be obvious to you. They go, that guy, that this crazy lunatic talking about, oh, it's so great that they shot Charlie. That's it, that's the entire left. Come on, guys. I mean, there's over 70 million Democratic voters. Most of them live in like rural areas, suburbs, etc. Their families, they're not rando 13-year-olds on Twitter who are saying crazy, stupid stuff. So that should be obvious to all of us, but I don't think it's even close to obvious. And so, as you're going to give us more examples here, Anna, I want you to keep in mind as you're watching this. Does this look like it's people who are trying to be responsible? In fact, sorry, Anna, let me read one thing from one of our members, because I think it's a really good point. Liberty Isn't Free is a member on TYT.com, and they wrote in, I think George W. Bush is a war criminal, but the one thing I'll always give him credit for is that he united us after 9/11. Trump had an opportunity to do the same yesterday and chose not to do that. He wants us hating each other and fighting each other because it will take all eyes off him. We cannot let that happen. So whether you're super mad at Trump or you're super mad at the left, either way, you're going in the wrong direction. So like, I mean today, right? You disagree on policy, you hate the left-wing policy, you hate the right-wing policy, no problem. Let's have policy fights. For God's sake, let's go back to policy fights, right? But when you're talking about it's all their fault and it's all their fault, it's not at all helpful.
No, but the right-wing reaction has been particularly vicious following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Take a look.
We're in a war. The left has been saying put a bullseye on Trump, a bullseye on his supporters.
Charlie Kirk's a casualty of war. We're in this country. We are.
They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it?
So prominent right-wing figures are hyping up a so-called war with the left in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's shooting and his killing, even though we still don't know who the actual assassin was. We don't know what his motives were. As of this recording, right? Things can develop from now moving forward. But here's a few examples of what people are saying online, starting with Elon Musk, who tweeted or posted, "If they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is fight or die." Matt Walsh took it further, saying, "I know some of you want to do the kumbaya thing. You want to say that the celebration of Charlie's death is only happening on the fringes." Let me just pause there. It is happening on the fringes. Every single prominent left winger, and I mean prominent left winger with a significant following, has not called for continued violence against the right. They have not said that we are at war with the right. I've seen Democratic figures talk about the tragedy of that killing. I mean, it's just, yes, there are morons online. If you're terminally online, you're going to come across small accounts saying some pretty disgusting things. But let me continue with what Matt Walsh had to say. "I'm sorry, but that's just not true. They jeered and heckled him in Congress yesterday. The left wants us dead. That is the mainstream view. It just is. It's the truth. They couldn't be any clearer about it. Stop lying to yourself, face the facts, and act accordingly." So what Matt Walsh is referring to is, there was a moment of silence on the House floor yesterday after Charlie Kirk was killed. The Democrats engaged in that moment of silence. And then debates started about whether they should do prayer, whether they should go further, whatever it is. But to say that they were jeering Charlie Kirk and heckling him in Congress yesterday is ridiculous. Christopher Rufo says, "The last time the radical left orchestrated a wave of violence and terror, J. Edgar Hoover shut it all down within a few years. It is time, within the confines of the law, to infiltrate, disrupt, arrest, and incarcerate all of those who are responsible for this chaos." Laura Loomer, weighs in and says, "Between the video of Irina," referring to a Ukrainian refugee who was stabbed to death on a train, "and the video of Charlie," two things that are not at all connected, "both bleeding to death out of their necks, this has been a very radicalizing week. A message to the left, debate time is over. You ended it." So Laura, what are you purporting that you're gonna do? Like, just be clear about it. Like, don't dance around it. What are you saying that you're gonna do? Okay, because I keep seeing these messages where they're implying that they're gonna engage in acts of violence. So tell us, what is your act of violence? What are you gonna do in response to this? To the left, when we don't have anyone apprehended, when we don't know what the motive is, what are you gonna do? Tell us.
Yeah. So
one more. Sorry, Cenk. Representative Clay Higgins. This is a sitting member of Congress. "I'm going to use congressional authority and every influence with big tech mandate immediate ban for life of every post or commenter that belittled the assassination of Charlie Kirk. If they ran their mouth with their smartass hatred celebrating the heinous murder of that beautiful young man who declared his whole life, dedicated his whole life to delivering respectful conservative truth into the hearts of liberal enclave universities, armed only with a Bible and a microphone and a constitution, those profiles must come down." But yeah, anyway, look, Clay Higgins really had no problem saying some pretty disgusting things following the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. Let's go to graphic 7 here. He publicly mocked the attack on Paul Pelosi, saying, "That moment you realize the nudist hippie male prostitute LSD guy was the reason your husband didn't make it to your fundraiser." Anyway, look, the pearl clutching from the right is really bothering me, considering the record, the very real existing record of their calls for violence or their mocking of left-wing figures being harmed in any way. It's just, this whole thing is ridiculous. Rather than taking the temperature down, rather than trying to find a way to ensure that there isn't additional violence, you have a sitting member of Congress, talking about the need to permanently censor people on the left for their political speech, even if I find it detestable, disgusting, insidious, whatever it is. But Cenk, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so no, this is terrible. So when you say to people, fight or die, you're telling them to fight, that their life is on the line. When you keep telling them we're at war, and not in the context of, hey, we're trying to pass this budget bill and we're at political war over it, or you just say at war, but we get it, you're fighting over the budget, right? No, this is in the context of someone who was just shot and killed. So they're saying we're at war, and aren't you gonna do anything about it? And Matt Walsh says act accordingly. The left wants us dead. Okay, so if you thought someone wanted you dead and they're outside your house, how would you act accordingly? You'd protect yourself and maybe shoot the person you thought was out to harm you or your family, right? So this is, at a bare minimum, all of this is deeply irresponsible, at a bare minimum.
We don't have leaders, Cenk. That's my problem. We don't have leaders in this country anymore. Okay, whether you're talking about the left or the right, it doesn't matter. We don't have leaders. And it's really angering me right now because things are already bad. Things are already divided. What happened to Charlie Kirk, whatever anyone on the left might think about it, was an absolute tragedy and flies in the face of what this country is supposed to represent in a democratic system. Okay, and then you have like members of Congress saying all sorts of irresponsible, stupid things. The president of the United States is pinning it on the radical left and talking about the need to go after them. It's this whole response so far, from the investigation into who the suspect is, to the way political figures are talking about it, to the way media figures are talking about it. It just really disgusts me, and it shows a lack of empathy, a lack of real care about where the future of this country is headed. And I'm worried. I'm worried and I'm scared for everyone. Okay, anyone who has the, honestly at this point, courage to publicly share what their political views are.
Yeah, so another one of our members wrote in about the Patriot Act, and after 9/11, and here we are on 9/11, they took away our rights, and they said, "Oh, in order to keep you safe," right? By the way, they've been taking our rights away one by one for a long time now. Like, for example, we all got used to warrantless wiretapping. So it was revealed that Bush was doing it. Edward Snowden's in hiding for being an American hero and telling us about that. And then they never really changed it. So those rights are gone. And then, okay, so they do all this stuff and they do all this snooping. And then did they catch the guy who was gonna kill Charlie Kirk? No, they didn't catch him at all. So all those taking away our rights, it didn't help. Does it look like it's helping with the massive violence in the country? No, there's one mass shooter after another. There's the lawmakers in Minnesota who were just shot. Charlie Kirk just got shot and killed. And it goes on and on and on. And all that so-called security, there isn't any of the security. But our rights are gone too. So now when Clay Higgins comes in and goes, oh, that's it. Any account I don't like, I'm gonna shut it down, I'm gonna cancel it, I might arrest you. Arrest people for their opinions? Okay, and then you're gonna put those words in a dead man's mouth and say that Charlie would have wanted that kind of cancel culture and that attack on freedom of speech. Look, after people die, they don't magically become angels. So I disagreed with a ton of things that Charlie said. So is it possible that he would have been a hypocrite and said, yeah, okay, let's do cancel culture and take away freedom of speech? It's possible, but he didn't say that because you're putting words in his mouth. He's not alive, right? It's also entirely possible that he would have said, no, don't start shutting down all social media accounts you disagree with or said something obnoxious. If you'd done that for the right wing, you'd have shut down 90% of their accounts. So what are we doing here? Are you serious? So like, I'll give you the last example here. So I saw a couple of tweets yesterday that were, again, I didn't see any prominent figures on the left or Democrats saying anything awful. And I was looking. It doesn't mean that I, was perfect and maybe you found one or two, but mainly it was smaller accounts or just randos, right? But whenever I ran into one of them, it made me physically ill. Like they're joking around about his neck wound. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you people?
Yeah, they're the worst.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
These people are the worst.
Right?
Yeah.
And you want to put yourself out like you're on the left? You're not on the left if you believe in things like that. You're for violence? You think it's funny? I don't think it's funny at all. I think it's disastrous. And so, yes, now does that mean I want to arrest that person or take away their speech rights? No, I just look at them and go, oh, okay, make sure you never work with that person who's deeply immoral, and we move on. I don't have to arrest them. I don't have to denaturalize them or whatever lunatic ideas that they're cooking up to take away our rights now. I mean, if you use the death of someone on the right who said, I mean, everybody knows Charlie Kirk claimed to be as against cancel culture as anyone in the country, whether you believed him or not, that is what he said. And he claimed that he was the most in favor of freedom of speech on college campuses and elsewhere. If you use his death to take away freedom of speech and institute cancel culture in this country, it'll be probably the most ironic thing that's ever happened.
We got to take a break, but when we come back, I actually want to give one person in particular some credit on the right for wanting to take the temperature down, and then half credit to Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who kind of gave us a muddled response, but he does deserve credit for one thing he admitted today. So stick around for that and more. We'll be right back.
All right, so lots of comments to get through here. Pakistani American Nexus Gladiator wrote in on Super Chat. Charlie Kirk's incident is a wake-up call to all of us. Feels like it's a man-made pandemic has divided America. We can't keep treating each other as enemies. It's time to unite, heal, and reject this hatred only for betterment. Reject the hatred on all sides. We all have to do our part, and that includes us for sure.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
Look, I obviously had very deep political disagreements with Charlie Kirk. There's no question about that. In fact, one of the things that really got under my skin was when we were debating him at the Democratic National Convention, and he essentially said that since I don't have children, I don't care about the future of this country. I mean, that obviously bothered me so much that I haven't been able to kind of shake it off. However, what I appreciated about Charlie Kirk was that he provided a platform for people who disagreed with him to engage in debate. And on top of that, at the last Turning Point USA, that annual event that they have, Dave Smith was given a platform to debate a pro-Israel guy on what's currently transpiring in Gaza. And that debate was excellent. And so, look, guys, if you're on the left and you actually care about winning over hearts and minds, you're not going to do it in an echo chamber where everyone who listens to the show or everyone who's at the conference or convention already agrees with you. You literally have no success in moving the country in a positive direction or the direction you want it to go in by doing that. I realized that a little too late in my career, which is why I appreciated Charlie Kirk providing a platform for people like me or people like Cenk to make our case to a completely different audience. Yeah. And so people who don't understand the value of that really frustrate me, because you're not thinking strategically and you don't really care about winning. You just care about, I don't know what you care about, I guess, condemning people for disagreeing with you politically.
Yeah, I've been banned by mainstream media. And so a lot of the right-wing shows have been more open-minded about having me on than MSNBC or CNN or just name an outlet. If you're an outsider, those folks, I mean, I can't believe that they're asking Anna on, and she's been doing an amazing job, and she's gonna be on CNN tonight at 10 o'clock. But in my experience, mainstream media has been way more in favor of censorship, not in favor of exchanging ideas. Only a certain set of ideas are allowed. If you go outside the guardrail, that's it, you're out, right? And so for all the obnoxious opinions that a lot of the hosts on the right wing have, at least we're having conversations. Ramon writes in on Super Chat, I'm disgusted by social media allowing the craziest among us to find community and like-minded crazies. I'm disgusted that a gruesome death like this can help This can whip around the world in an instant, a disgusting algorithmic Pandora's box. Look, so I don't know what to do about those algorithms and the communities, but everybody do better, for lack of a better word. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Brett, Donna Andrews, Samantha Harris, Jay Ramsey, and George's GR. They all just hit the join button below and became Young Turks members. We appreciate it, guys. You get all of our programming whenever you want. Plus, you help support honest programming. We appreciate you. We literally can't do it without you, so you make all the difference. And this goes to thank you for gifting 5 Young Turks memberships. And lastly, look, we do the show with our audience and with our members. So R. Stone was the one who made a good point on Super Chat that I quoted earlier. So real quick, he said, given today's date, that it doesn't pass me that actions 24 years ago led to the Patriot Act that's still with us. This is yesterday's event, could lead to self-inflicted erosion of our rights. Mature leadership is paramount. So thank you for being part of the show, R. Stone, and all the new members. We appreciate it. Anna.
Well, look, we had just talked about all of the various right-wing figures who are not at all interested in lowering the temperature when it comes to political violence. But I really want to draw attention and give credit to other individuals who are saying some good things, responsible things. So let's get into it. While many members of the right have really taken the opportunity to inspire others to engage in more violent rhetoric following the assassination of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, there are some who are attempting to lower the temperature, attempting to encourage Americans to avoid engaging in violence and to find common ground and essentially fight the other political side through, political means. One of those individuals is conservative commentator Eric Erickson, who wrote on X today saying that he's seeing people on the right, many of them professing Christians, pronounce "you don't hate them enough," meaning the left. It seems to me that's what got us to this point. Many of them do hate us. Some of my right-wing friends on here are not Christians and have for a long time insisted we need to embrace the methods of the left. Some of my Christian friends have agreed. But Christianity conquered the world by being the opposite of worldly hate. And I don't think now is a good time to give that up. Being a light in an increasingly dark world and drawing others to us will be more effective than reciprocating. Just last week, Charlie Kirk gave an interview and said, quote, "You have to try to point them towards ultimate purposes and towards getting back to the church, getting back to faith, getting married, having children. I'm trying to paint a picture of virtue, of lifting people up, not just staying angry." And then he ends with, "The world says to seek retribution. Faith says to let Christ take care of retribution. You love God and your neighbor. The problem we face is bigger than you. It is not bigger than God. So be wary of those who call you away from our better angels. It is what this evil wants." I love that message, and I don't know how many people who are furious on the right today will really listen to it or read it. But this is the kind of message I wish our president was spreading right now, rather than further inflaming people or using inflammatory rhetoric, which is only leading to higher tensions in a already divided country.
Yeah, I really appreciate Eric Erickson saying that. Again, as with anyone on the right, we've had massive disagreements with him before, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you use strongly worded language in the midst of those heated disagreements, and God knows I've done it, nothing wrong with that. But when you have someone who was just shot in a grotesque, horrific act of violence, that is not the time to use loaded language about war and you've got to do something before the other side does, and the other side is attacking us, and you've got to act, and etc. That is a disastrous time for that kind of language that Jesse Waters and and so many others have used. Steve Bannon, Matt Walsh, it goes on. So to see Eric Erickson here, reminding people about Jesus and the message of love and nonviolence, as we did yesterday on the show, reminding you about Martin Luther King's quote about how hate can't drive out hate, only love can. So I'm glad to see that some on the right have cooler heads and actually care about the country. That's what I care most about. Like, because if you just care about your side or you care about winning, whatever winning means to you, then you're not gonna mind egging people on and driving more division. But
not only that, but Jake, I mean, like, what are you gonna accomplish through violence, really? Like, think about that. I mean, if right-wingers use this as an opportunity to carry out acts of violence, do they think they're gonna win anything? I don't think they're gonna win a damn thing. Any violence that's been carried out has not led to political successes in this country. So Eric Erickson, I think by putting out a message like this shows that he actually cares about his political side.
And by the way, that also applies to the left. I mean, what are you going to accomplish with violence? So we don't know that this person was on the left because now it's super strange that he hasn't been caught, right? But so if they caught him right away and he was a rando, then almost certainly he would have been on the left, you would imagine, right? But since they haven't caught him, it's a weird situation. But it doesn't matter because other people on the left have done violence. And so it is deeply counterproductive, especially if you're on the left, but really on any side. What are you going to do? It's going to lead to more clampdowns from the government, right? It's going to lead to people taking away your rights more. People on the right claim that they care a lot about those constitutional rights. I hope that they actually do. People on the left certainly care about those constitutional rights. So violence is going to only lead to you losing your rights and the government getting bigger and stronger. And especially if you're on the right and you're worried about the tyranny of government, to now say, oh yeah, maybe there should be more violence or more government crackdowns or more, like Clay Higgins, the Republican congressman, is saying, maybe we should start shutting down the social media accounts of people on the left, maybe arresting them. That is un-American. And so if you care about the country, you have a reaction like Eric did, which is, no, we gotta be united. We gotta stay together. We gotta be a country. We have to be America. Otherwise, this thing's gonna devolve totally out of hand. And people who hate this country are going to be ecstatic if we start murdering each other back and forth. Because
that's exactly right. Yeah, and by the way, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen has had a bit of a muddled message following the killing of Charlie Kirk, but he did have a moment today, an admission, if you will, that I thought was interesting, and I appreciated it. Let's take a look.
It's all of our faults, right? I mean, we stir up the base. If you stir up the base, what do you expect is going to happen? If you stir a fire, coals are going to come out of it. If you pour gasoline on a fire, it's going to explode. And sometimes we gaslight the base, and it's been happening a lot. And I am pointing fingers here because this happened to Republicans a lot lately, but it seems like that the Democrats are gaslighting this a lot more. And it goes from calling the president a dictator, from saying that that we are Nazis, that it's been an attack on Christian values. You see it across campuses, that you either agree with us or you're the enemy.
So I did appreciate that message because he's at least self-aware enough to admit that this is a problem on the right as well. I haven't really seen many right-wing figures or politicians willing to do that type of self-assessment. And I think the self-assessment is important to do on both sides of the political aisle. Let me be clear about that. The one thing that I do take issue with, though, is as a political analyst or pundit, you are well within your rights to be strongly critical of a public figure's, political acts, political views. The difference is your rhetoric inciting violence? Are you targeting people and through your rhetoric, through your vitriol, inciting violence? So it's just something to keep in mind as we move forward.
Yeah, this is a silly thing to be proud of, but so I've told you guys before, I like Grok. That's the fact-checking algorithm on X. And somebody asked her, "Oh yeah, well, hasn't Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks also used violent rhetoric?" And Grok was like, "No, they are constantly preaching nonviolence on their show, no matter which side." And I was like, yes, because that's true. I love that there's an AI out there that scours 60,000 or 100,000 videos, whatever we have online, and goes, "Nope, it checks. For 20 straight years, we've been preaching nonviolence. Violence is never the answer."
All right, well, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit because there's a lot of other news to get to, including some updates on the stabbing death of a Ukrainian refugee. That story's been getting a lot of attention. We'll tell you why and more when we return.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcast and cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
guys, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and C Kaviris89, that's Constantine. He wrote in on TYT.com where he became a member just now. Yesterday, Cenk read my super chat and said I was a member, and I couldn't stand for Cenk to be wrong because of me, so I just joined. Glad to be back. Cenk wasn't wrong, just early. Okay, well, I appreciate you looking out for me, brother. And most importantly, I appreciate you becoming a member. And Jamie did the same on YouTube by hitting the join button below. And somebody asked, hey, what's the difference between a YouTube member and one on the website? You guys all get the same thing. If you're on YouTube though, make sure you connect your accounts so you get everything on the website too. That's free, tyt.com/connect, okay? Anna, what's next?
Well, I wanted to kind of switch gears and talk about something that's been in the news. It's a difficult story to cover, but anyway, let's get to it. Let's talk about the tragic stabbing death in Charlotte.
The man seen on this train attacking Irina Zarutska, the young woman who moved to the U.S. from Ukraine to escape war back home, is facing federal murder charges, and President Trump is calling for the death penalty, writing that DeCarlos Brown should be given a quick trial and only awarded the death penalty. There can be no other option.
The repeat offender who stabbed a young Ukrainian refugee to death on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina, has been charged by federal authorities with federal murder charges. Now, DeCarlos Brown Jr., the suspect in this fatal stabbing, is also facing state murder charges and has not entered a plea yet. Now, let's talk a little bit about the details of the crime. So the suspect is 34 years old. Again, his name is DeCarlos Brown. He was arrested on August 22nd after police say he stabbed and killed 23-year-old Irina Zarutska 3 times while riding the Lynx Blue Line in Charlotte. Now, the Justice Department says that Brown is eligible for the death penalty, considering he is facing federal murder charges. Brown has been charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of North Carolina with committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. And as I alluded to earlier, he does have a criminal history, along with some indication that he suffers from schizophrenia. We'll get to the mental health condition in just a minute, but first, let's give you his record. So since 2007, Brown has had at least 14 separate cases in the criminal court system, specifically in Mecklenburg County, which is where Charlotte is. When he was 22, for instance, Brown was charged in at least 4 separate cases that included shoplifting, larceny, breaking and entering, and felony conspiracy. Now, court records show that he was in fact convicted of all of those charges with the exception of conspiracy. He was not found guilty of that. Now, less than a year later, Brown pulled a gun on a man in the middle of the day at a Charlotte apartment complex and robbed him of his cell phone and $450. Now, in that case, Brown actually pleaded guilty and served some time behind bars. He served 6 years in prison in addition to 1 year of probation. Now, within months of his release, though, Brown was charged with assaulting his sister, and according to a local television station, even Brown's mother has blamed the courts for allowing her son to be out in the community. And guys, look, this story is very specific to what happened in Charlotte, but I want to be clear. This issue has been happening across the country where you have people who clearly are not well, who are mentally ill. You have their family members pleading with authorities to do something because they might have schizophrenia and they refuse to take their medication. They are a threat to themselves and a threat to others. But local communities don't do anything about it, mainly because, there's a pretty well-organized effort to prevent institutionalizing people who have severe mental health issues like schizophrenia and refuse to take their medication. The ACLU is one organization that's been, pretty effective in their fight against involuntary institutionalization of people. Have a point. In other cases, they don't have a point, and they are putting local communities in jeopardy as a result of that. But let me give you a few more details. So we also know that Brown could have faced some federal charges back in 2014 when he was a felon in possession of a firearm. However, federal prosecutors did not take the case, and the state charge was dropped in exchange for that guilty plea on the robbery charge that we talked about earlier. Then in January of this year, police were called as Brown was in the hospital. When they arrived, that's when records say Brown told them someone gave him a man-made material that was controlling him. Officers advised Brown that the issue was a medical issue and that there was nothing further they could do, a police report says. Brown became upset with officers, or officers' answers, and with officers still on the scene, called 911 to speak with police. Apparently, he called 911 repeatedly. And at that point, officers arrested him on a charge of misuse of 911. A judge later released him without bail. So if you hear some on the right talk about this stabbing death in Charlotte and how he was released without bail, that's what they're referring to. But, I mean, someone calling 911 repeatedly is not really a public threat, if you ask me. If you take his entire record into account and his mental health condition into account, then we're having a different conversation. But after that, the train stabbing happened. So before I get to his mental fitness, Cenk, I want to hear from you and what you think about this.
Yeah, first I want to hear from the audience, although I'm a little worried about it this time. So we do live chats throughout the day, right? When we do the broadcast 6 to 8 o'clock Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. So in this case, we're asking in the chat, should the stabbing suspect receive the death penalty? Yes, no, and I'm not sure. Wow, yes is winning dramatically at 58%. All right, guys, so here's my take on it. And so I don't fully agree with that. So is this a super serious case? Yes, obviously, it's a murder, right? So is my top concern the well-being of the person who did it? No, but is that among my concerns? Sure, why? Because we have to have the right rules and we have to apply them right, otherwise we're gonna have extremes in both directions. So one side says, okay, let's kill this person, whether they're mentally well or not. And by the way, some of the people that voted in the poll might not know about his mental health. We didn't even quite get to that yet. So I'm not saying about you guys, but I'm saying politicians, right? So on the other side, unfortunately, we have some in the left who say, or ACLU, whatever, right? Saying, no, do nothing, it's freedom. No, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, what do they think about his freedom right now? I'd like to know. What does the ACLU have to say about his freedom today as he is now facing the literal death penalty?
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Okay, like let's let people who are obviously suffering from severe mental health issues that could lead to them harming themselves, number one, but also more importantly, harming others, murdering others. Okay, so let's just wait for that to happen so they can get arrested and then spend the rest of their life in prison or even get the death penalty. How does that make any sense? It makes me so angry, but go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, so look, it doesn't have to be either extreme. We either do nothing or the death penalty for someone who's not mentally well, if they're adjudicated that way, right? So if he does not have mental health problems, then in that fact pattern, I'm against death penalty, so I say a life sentence. But I think life sentence is super easy and obvious. Of course, life sentence. He took someone's life, he should have a life sentence. So that's my take on it. If you're for the death penalty, I understand that this is a case that you would want to apply. Now, if it's true that he has a mental health problem, to me that puts it in a different category. So that category then is where it gets interesting, because I am for involuntarily institutionalizing some people, okay? So now, obviously you have to clarify what that means, because in the old days, we had the bad old days where they would involuntarily institutionalize way too many people, and their standards for institutionalizing people were terrible, and the places they sent them were even worse. Number one, we don't have to have terrible institutions that take care of people's mental health. We should have great institutions that do that. So number two, just because they abused it back then doesn't mean we have to abuse it today. So we should have very strict standards for doing something that's involuntary. It has to be a high bar, not like, hey, Bobby thinks that Susie's acting a little strange, let's lock her up. No, hell no, right? And there's gotta be a process and doctors and a clear determination. But once you have that clear determination, no, you gotta go. No way that you're gonna be in the streets. I don't care about all freedom. You crazy? Are you crazy? I mean, then maybe you should have a mental health check too. Because so you want folks who are not mentally well and could cause significant violence to themselves or others to just be walking around because of freedom? No, hell no. No, we got kids, we got parents, we got everyone. We're not gonna just let mentally unwell, but that is what we have now. We have an insane system. Yeah. We're mentally unwell for allowing it. Oh, you're not well, you're literally crazy, and you've done other acts of violence or broken other laws before? Oh yeah, sure, walk around. That makes no sense, no way.
And these attacks, let's just note, tend to happen on public transportation, places where the elite, if you will, don't have to worry about using if they need to go to and fro work. Like, let's just keep it real. And so I wanna just note one other thing. Nothing helps feed into the desires of neoliberals who do not want to spend any resources on public services than this ideology that just essentially says, oh no, we're doing it for freedom. No, it's not about freedom. Okay, for the ACLU, I think they're actually sincere they really do believe they're protecting people with what they're pushing. However, when it comes to policymakers, they don't want to spend tax revenue on well-funded, humane mental health facilities that are run by counties. That's an expensive thing to do, isn't it? Yeah. So that's something else to take into consideration when it comes to why policymakers make the decisions they do, both on a local level and state level, and quite frankly, on a federal level as well. I mean, every time the topic of allocating money for mental health comes up, I mean, it keeps getting shot down with the majority, if not all Republicans voting against it. We need to fund mental health facilities. They need to be humane. And you're right, Cenk, there need to be safeguards to ensure that the only people who are involuntarily institutionalized are people who have very severe mental health issues and pose a threat to themselves and to others. Now, I want to talk about his mental fitness and what we know so far, because there are some details here that are worth getting into. So I mentioned Brown's mother earlier, and she has been speaking out about what she's experienced with her son. So Brown's mother, according to AP News, Michelle DeWitt, told local television she sought an involuntary psychiatric commitment this year after he became violent at home. Doctors diagnosed him with schizophrenia. But it is incredibly, incredibly difficult to have that request fulfilled. And I know that from people I know personally in California. It is very difficult to do. So here's more on what we know about Brown's mental health.
Court documents show Brown is undergoing a psychiatric evaluation in prison. Brown's sister recording a phone call with her brother after his arrest, where he referred to himself in the third person, telling her,
"Why would somebody just stab somebody for no reason?"
His mother telling ABC News she kicked him out of her house after he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and refused to take his medication. Brown's criminal history has been cited by many on the right as an example of violent crime plaguing Democratic-led cities. Today, Republican officials in Charlotte spoke out.
This is a result of failed policies, weak leadership, and a judicial system that protects criminals instead of innocent individuals.
Please allocate the funding for mental health facilities for inpatient mental health care. Like, it's so utterly important to do that. So if Republicans are serious about it, there's certainly something they can do on their end. The left, I don't know. I think that they, for the most part, are in line with what the ACLU wants. And I think that's a mistake. I really do. But, I don't want to say that it's the entirety of the left. I want to be clear about that.
No,
but the most vocal.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with that, Anna. So I'm gonna come back to that in a second. First, I want to go to a member on tyt.com. Don Dada Dragon said, the issue is the knee-jerk reaction from Trump, who wants to institutionalize in places like Alligator or Alcatraz. Furthermore, private prisons definitely would not get a big payoff. I'm open to mental health care facilities. I just want it done right. So to me, I think that speaks for us. And we don't have to go to extremes, guys. Constantly pushing to extremes, right? It's either Alligator or Alcatraz for mentally ill people. Why? Or just let them go, and then hopefully they don't stab you. That's the worst. Like, those are both horrible options. Good mental health facilities is the correct option. So Anna, the only reason I said it, I think that if you show that video and have this conversation with people that are on the left in the country, the voters, etc. I think that the overwhelming majority would say, oh yeah, we totally agree with you guys. Mental health facilities, don't let them walk around, etc. So you're referring to some activists in the cities that do say, no, you gotta, it's all about freedom, etc. Yeah, they definitely call themselves left. They definitely say they're progressives. But to me, that's not really a progressive position to say, oh yeah, I'm okay with injustice that happens to working class people because someone who was unhoused did it. What? No, that's not a progressive position. I think that's an extreme libertarian position. And
it is a libertarian position, but anyway, okay. I don't want to get into a debate about whether the left is in favor of what we're seeing in big cities all across the country. But anyway, the other thing that I want to just quickly mention is there is something wrong with our society. We have become so desensitized to violence that for over 2 minutes, after this poor woman was stabbed, no one did a damn thing. I could not believe it. So I did not want to show a video of the stabbing, to be honest. It's gruesome, and I just don't think you need to see it. If you want to see it, it's online. You can do it if you want. But I do want to show what happened in the immediate aftermath of the stabbing. Okay, so that's what you're watching right now. So she's just been stabbed 3 times. She's bleeding out. And no one on this train is doing a damn thing. Nothing. Now he's walking around. We can't show you, the blood because of YouTube, terms of service, but he's carrying the knife that he just used to stab this woman. It's dripping with blood. You can see blood dripping all over the train's floor. And people are just sitting there. I don't know what to say about it. It's heartbreaking. And honestly, I have seen far too many videos that are similar. Maybe it's not a stabbing, it's some other act of violence, but it's become normalized. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's become normalized. You're just supposed to accept it and you're not supposed to react to it at all.
Yeah, no. So look, when you have someone whose life is on the line there, and she got stabbed and her reaction was one of such shock. You saw it there in the video as blood is coming out and nobody's doing anything. Look, there was some, there's a lot of the good old days that weren't good at all, right? And a lot of that is romanticized. But there was one thing in the old days that was a good thing. And that was when people looked out for one another. And there was a community. And if somebody was hurt in your community or attacked in your community, people would rally. And men would be men, and they would go and try to help people. And yeah, I said it, and I don't mind saying it. And if you are offended by that, oh no, well, you can't put it in gender terms or whatever. No, a man is supposed to protect. Sorry, but that's just reality. And so I'm not putting it on you that, hey, the guy's got a knife. I don't need you to be the hero of heroes, right? But go help her, And I hope everybody does it. But come on.
I know. I agree with you, and I think that man or woman, anyone who feels confident enough to step in some way and just at least apprehend the guy in some way so he doesn't potentially hurt someone else. But there's also a risk in doing that. And I'm not just talking about the individuals who step in potentially getting hurt themselves. If they accidentally do something that harms the perpetrator here, well, then they could potentially face criminal charges as well. So it's just the whole situation is really messed up, and it could be avoided if you have, schizophrenia and refuse to take their medication. People who have severe mental health issues are given the treatment that they need. And that's just not happening right now.
Yep.
We're not tackling the root of the problem.
Yep. All right, guys, so we're gonna take a break here. When we come back, one of the stories we still have to get to is Jerry Seinfeld weirdly racist? So one of our polls. And today we're gonna do something interesting. Peter Beinart's gonna be on the show at 8:30. We're gonna go public bonus episode today. Normally it's just for the members. And then we're gonna talk to Beinart. He wrote a really amazing, interesting book, somewhat related to Seinfeld, and I'll ask him about that, about what does it mean to be Jewish now after the genocide. And so a lot of other Jewish Americans are mad at him. He was on the Daily Show talking about that. And so it's gonna be a really interesting conversation. So stay right here, a lot more to come. All right, back on TYT. Let's go to our members on TYT.com. Pessimistic Progressive says, I'm so often embarrassed by our country. Imagine fleeing a war zone to be safe, only to be killed by someone with mental health issues that our country refuses to do anything about. Yep, that is embarrassing. And I was thinking about that story, and I was thinking, I'm surprised. One of you guys wrote, and I hope I get to it at some point, about like being from Canada and why would I come to America? It is starting to feel like the wild, wild west out here. And like it made me worry about American tourism, because I think people are starting to get the memo. You're taking your life into your hands if you go to America. There's like,
tourism is down big time in America right now. People do not want to come here, and I don't blame them.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
I mean, it's just an absolute mess here. Anyway, Theater Goddess writes in cases like this, it isn't about involuntarily institutionalizing someone for having a mental illness or being weird. It's about removing them from society because they cannot be trusted to take medication to keep themselves and others safe. So a good and interesting point there. Sawyer Ram said, I had a brother who had schizophrenia, and I really wish we were given more resources. He might be alive today. So that's powerful. You're not helping these people. Yeah, I had a family member who had an issue like that. And the very last thing I would have done is, oh yeah, let's have them go in the streets of New York or Charlotte or Washington. Are you crazy? So no. Emily Miller wrote in, stop turning politics into a middle school dodgeball game where you scream left bad or right bad and pretend that it's productive. Declaring war on an entire political party is not bravery, it's intellectual laziness. It's the tantrum of someone too small-minded to realize that no single group has a monopoly on truth, corruption, or idiocy. When you hyperfixate on one enemy side, you become blind to the failures on your own. Thank you, that's such a great point. You become a pawn, easy to rile up, easy to distract, and completely useless to real progress. You're not a revolutionary when you're foaming at the mouth about the left or the right. You're just a loud distraction making the country dumber. Emily continues, if you truly want change, stop playing team mascot for politicians who don't even know you exist. Aim your energy at solving problems, not worshiping colors on a map. Division is the cheapest con ever sold, and you're buying it in bulk. Unity isn't weakness, it's the only way out of this swamp. Grow up, wake up, and stop being so embarrassingly predictable. Emily, that is a great statement. We all got to get back to being Americans. And they want us divided. That's why we have this shirt on shoptyt.com. Look up. The problem isn't to your left or to your right, and it's certainly not beneath you. Rural Dragon writes, in the level of hypocrisy Trump, etc. are exhibiting is breathtakingly shameful. I don't know how they sleep at night having so little integrity. And then also says, it's times like this, can't believe I'm about to say this, that I miss people like John McCain. He understood that there were good Americans on the other side. He cautioned not to demonize the other side, and he had the clout and the power to say so meaningfully. Yeah, this is similar to the comment that another member made about George Bush. So those guys were terrible, they were warmongers, etc. But yeah, there was a culture back then of not ripping each other to shreds. But that culture is going. Dr. Gonzo said, I'm a Canadian, we have, there it is. We have significant gun control laws here to the point where something like this assassination is almost unthinkable. It's crazy to me how Americans can walk around in their own communities without being terrified. No one should have to be afraid of being shot because they have an opinion. Couldn't agree more, we'll be back. All right, we're back on TYT Cenk and Anna with you guys. Real quick, one more message from a sponsor, and this one I use very regularly. It's Prize Picks, and so they want me to say that I'm locked in on my Prize Picks. I ain't locked in. I'm over for this year. Okay, now to be fair, it's only been 1 week, okay, but I didn't get a single thing right. But you can, and it is relatively easy, right? So download the app today and do better than me, you just gotta win once. Anyway, use code TYT to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So just play $5, you get $50. That's code TYT to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. There's a new max discount, like with Travis Kelce finishing with half a receiving yard or Patrick Mahomes throwing half a passing yard. To be fair, I did use that one last week with Lamar Jackson. That's the only thing I got right. Yes, he got more than half a yard. That's the freebie they give you. Anyway, that's code TYT to get $50 in lineups after you play just $5 in lineups. Lineups is what they call the things that you are guessing on there. So check out Prize Picks. Yeah.
What even is that? Is this like the fantasy stuff you do?
Yeah, well, it's kind of, yeah. So like, let's say you're gonna, there's a Washington game on tonight. Jaden Daniels, their quarterback, right? So is he gonna throw over, and let's make up a number, 200 yards or under 200 yards? So you could put $5 on either one of those. And then when you do, you get another $50. So that's the beginning part. That's why you got to do the promo code TYT. But you know me, I love that stuff. So I think I've got it all figured.
I do. You definitely love your fantasies. There's no question about that. All right, well, let's move on to our next story.
If we look at the pattern of Netanyahu's action since the war started after October 7, it's been like in a very systematic way, trying to undermine any chance of stability, any chance of peace, and any chance of retrieving his own hostages.
The Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Qatar, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani, sat down with CNN for an exclusive interview following Israel's attack in Qatar. And he did accuse the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of deliberately setting back peace negotiations with the strike on Qatar's capital of Doha on Tuesday. Now, Hamas has stated that 5 of its members were in fact killed as a result of the strike. However, the leading members of its negotiating delegation, which of course were the main targets of Israel, are still alive. Here's more on that.
And by the way, at the same day, I was meeting one of the hostages' family that morning, the morning of the attack. Carrying a message that the families, they are counting on this mediation. They have no other hope for that. And I think that what Netanyahu has done yesterday, he just killed any hope for those hostages.
And to be clear, the family members of the hostages have been very vocal in agreement with what you just heard. They feel that what Netanyahu had signed off on in doing this strike in Doha, Qatar, was essentially, signing the, assassination or signing off on the assassination of their family members who remain captive in Gaza. So we have some more moments of this interview, which we'll get to in just a minute. But Cenk, I mean, attacking in Doha was so utterly thuggish and irresponsible. And this just continues to happen. I mean, Israel feels that they are entitled to bomb or carry out strikes in any sovereign country they feel like. And they, in fact, have engaged in that type of activity since October 7th. And it's dragging the United States in an incredibly dangerous place. I'm worried about a full-on war spreading throughout the Middle East and the United States getting dragged into it. And so, Netanyahu and the Israeli government, they're playing with fire and they just seem incredibly belligerent and unapologetic about it.
Yeah, so there's two disastrous elements of this. One is Israel constantly attacking other countries. This used to be a huge thing. This used to be a thing called war. When you bombed a sovereign nation, that was not a small event. That means you guys were going to go to war. So, but Israel now has new rules that apply to no one but Israel, which is, oh no, we can kill anyone we like in any country, and we could bomb any country. We could bomb their capitals, we could bomb their civilian population, within their civilian population. There are no rules at all for Israel. They're above the law, okay? So that's already disaster number one. They've done it in so many countries, now we're up to 7, right? And they also take land in Syria, Lebanon, obviously the occupied territories, etc. But there's a second disaster, which is they've killed the lead negotiator for Iran when they did their bombing there. And now we're trying to kill the lead negotiators for Hamas. So if you're killing the negotiators for peace, you're obviously not going to get peace. And so you can't say, oh golly gee, I can't believe we don't have a peace deal. I mean, yeah, I reached across the table when we're in the middle of negotiations and slit his throat. But it's his fault. It's his fault, not my fault. No, it's definitively your fault. And by the way, dropping a bomb on someone is no different than reaching across the table and slitting their throat. You're murdering them. You're murdering your fellow negotiator. And there is literally no clearer sign that you do not want peace. So that's Netanyahu's government basically saying, yeah, after hostages, go ahead and kill them, because we're never going to make any deal with you. And remember, just a couple of weeks ago, Hamas crumbled and accepted Israel's offer on Gaza, and then Israel changed their mind. They're like, oh yeah, that offer, it's revoked. Because they were lying. There are no offers. There's never been an attempt to get to peace, because they want to take Gaza, and now that's what they're doing. They've already got 75%. Now they need Gaza City, and the slaughter in Gaza City has begun. This is as clear a genocide as I have ever seen, and almost all the world's genocide scholars agree with me. In fact, the whole planet agrees with us. Massive demonstrations in country after country that has nothing to do with the Middle East. Why? Because we're like, I can't believe that no one's stopping this horrific slaughter of the poor Palestinians. The only people who don't agree are the politicians and media in Western countries.
So I want to be clear about something, because there is a lot of misinformation about there in regard to members of Hamas leadership being in Doha, Qatar in the first place. You know, many view this as Qatar essentially harboring terrorists. However, the prime minister weighed in on that and said that both Israel and the United States specifically wanted Qatar to keep Hamas there. Here's more on that.
When Hamas office was established, was done with coordination, request by the Americans, by the Israelis. They've been using it as a communication channel for them, for Gaza, for all those years. And I'm sorry here, any Israeli politician who today is trying to to portray himself that he's away from this. This happened under Netanyahu's government, under Bennett government, under Lapid government, under Netanyahu's government again. Any agency says that no, they're not involved. It's not true. Mossad, Shabak, and the Ministry of Defense were involved in that. So there is no justification that this is considered harboring terrorism or whatever.
Now, I want to go to the last video here, because Netanyahu has commented on this and is not at all apologetic, doesn't really seem to care about what the hostages' family members have to say about it. And this is what terroristic defiance looks like. Take a look.
We went after the terrorist masterminds who committed the October 7th massacre. And we did so in Qatar, which gives safe haven. It harbors terrorists. It finances Hamas. It gives its terrorist chieftains sumptuous villas. It gives them everything. So we did exactly what America did when it went after the terrorists, the Al-Qaeda terrorists in Afghanistan, and after they went and killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. Now the various countries of the world condemn Israel. They should be ashamed of themselves. What did they do after America took out Osama bin Laden? Did they say, oh, what a terrible thing was done to Afghanistan or to Pakistan? No, they applauded. They should applaud Israel for standing up to these same principles and carrying them out. And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
All right, so does that mean that any country can target you, Benjamin Netanyahu, after you facilitated the funding of Hamas? We've known that Hamas leadership has been in Doha, Qatar. He's known, as is clear by Netanyahu and the United States wanting to keep the Hamas offices open in Qatar, that they were located in Doha, Qatar. And so explain to me why for the last nearly 2 years, the IDF has engaged in the just full slaughter of Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, civilians, while pretending to go after Hamas, knowing that Hamas's leadership is in Doha, Qatar, and they wait, 2 years to try to take them out? I'm not buying it at all.
Yeah. So I have strong thoughts on this. First, I'm curious about your thoughts. We're doing a poll in the live chat, shows live 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Is Bibi solely responsible for peace negotiations falling through? Yes, no, I'm not sure. Yes is winning overwhelmingly, as it should. It is an empirical fact. Now he says, well, we had to kill them. They were terrorists. I mean, they're Hamas. That's it, period. Done with this. Just like bin Laden. Okay, wait. Bin Laden was not in the middle of peace negotiations. He had committed a terrorist act here in the US and was in hiding. And coordination with the Pakistani government is an interesting, nuanced topic that we covered earlier. But it is nothing like Hamas that was negotiating a release of hostages, an end to hostilities. Israel was withdrawn from territory, has won an election before, etc. So very, very different fact pattern. Now, he says Hamas is terrible and they're terrorists, so end of conversation. But wait a minute, the Israeli government is bigger terrorist than Hamas. That's empirical. You can catch feelings over it, I don't care, but so let me give you the facts. As we've told you before, Hamas's civilian kill ratio on October 7th was disastrous, one of the worst. 67% of the people that they killed were civilians. So far, Israel's civilian kill ratio, according to the IDF, based on leaks that Israeli press got, is 83%, significantly worse than Hamas. So they are intending to kill civilians, and they are. And they have kill zones. Yesterday we showed a guy who sounded exactly like an SS soldier, bragging about how he killed 105 Palestinians with no weapons that were defenseless. And he was saying how good he is at murdering Palestinians. So, and they brag about it. They brag about how they murder people with intent that they know are not threats. And then we've told you countless stories about the children that they've killed. And now at this point, it's over 20,000, right? So the raw numbers are 60 times worse than Hamas. The ratio is significantly worse than Hamas, worse than what Assad did in Syria, worse than almost any terrorist activity in terms of percentage of civilians killed. So Israel is obviously at this point, unfortunately, heartbreakingly, a bigger terrorist group than Hamas is. So using Netanyahu's logic, well, they're peace negotiators, they're cabinet, their prime minister, all fair game, because Israel says, well, yeah, we murdered the entire government of Yemen, the Houthis that were in effect controlling all of a huge percentage of Yemen, and had the capital. We killed their prime minister, we killed their cabinet. We have a right to do it because terrorists. I call them terrorists, and that's a magic word. And once you use that magic word, you can murder anyone you like because Israel doesn't have to listen to any of the laws that the rest of the planet has to listen to. So, okay, but the reality is, empirically, Netanyahu and his cabinet are far worse terrorists. Now, I don't believe the same thing that Netanyahu does, that he just labels someone a terrorist, that means you should murder them, that you should murder any politicians or peace negotiators, whether they're on the Palestinian side or the Israeli side, because I'm not a monster and a terrorist like Netanyahu is. So, look, guys, a couple of countries are a little bit famous for holding peace negotiations, and the world kind of appreciates them for that. Qatar is one of them. Turkey sometimes jumps in and does that. Some European countries do that. Now, when Israel has repeatedly murdered peace negotiators, no one's gonna want peace negotiations in their country because it's an open invitation for Israel to bomb you and murder people inside your country. and says America and the rest of the world won't ever do anything about Israel. Like normally that would be an outrage. If Russia did it, we'd do an endless sanctions and we would fund hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons against them. If China did it to Taiwan, we'd be in open war with them, etc. But when Israel does it, they're like, oh yeah, of course. Oh, you want to do it in the middle of Switzerland? Do it. Yeah, murder anyone you like. You're above the law. So no, that Netanyahu guy that you just saw is one of the worst terrorists of my lifetime. And he said people should be ashamed of themselves for not cheerleading the disgusting terrorism of Israel. And he said they should applaud Israel. How many more people are gonna, you want me to applaud a bunch of terrorists? No. If you're applauding the government of Israel today, in the middle of one of the worst genocides we've ever seen in our lifetimes, you're a bit of a monster. And you're definitely racist. Palestinian lives, who cares? Just kill them all. They're all stupid terrorists. Just kill them. Us? No way. We get to kill more of you. We get to kill more of your civilians. We get to kill more of your children. We get to kill 500 times your children. We get to murder peace negotiators. We get to do everything we want. But if you say something bad about us, my feelings are hurt. My feelings are hurt. That's it. I mean, you know that son of a bitch, the SS soldier that we showed you yesterday, that's the sniper who was murdering all those innocent Palestinians? He said that he was one of the guys on a college campus in America that said his feelings were hurt. They were criticizing Israel too much, so they were all anti-Semites and should be arrested because you hurt the feelings of a Gestapo soldier who murders civilians for fun. And that's the bigger crime. Now, look, outside of the people in power who are disgustingly corrupt, no one believes any Israeli lies anymore.
All right, when we come back, we'll show you one person who believes the Israeli lies, and that's unfortunately comedian Jerry Seinfeld. Don't miss it.
All right, let's go to Super Chat. Dwayne Hunter says we have to find a way to come together. There are people on both sides of the middle that get caught up in the shouting at the extremes. You guys are really helping lead the way, Cenk and Anna. Thank you for saying that, Dwayne. Appreciate it. Steeman 661 writes in, I'm a liberal atheist. I dare you to go on any left-leaning Reddit community right now. All of them, everyone is praising his death. It's disgusting. So, brother, I don't know about that, but I hear you. I've seen some of it. And I can't believe it. I'm stunned by it. And like the callousness with which they mock his death is, so they're not prominent figures, but I get why people are sickened by it. So I want to be absolutely clear about that. And if you are one of those sick, disgusting people making fun of Charlie Kirk's death, you're not one of us. You became a weirdo monster. And you're filled with hate, and that is not left wing at all. In Liberty and Guns We Trust writes, and I think the decline of America is exponentially accelerating. There's no way two such polarly divided parties can sustain a successful nation. George Washington warned of partisan politics. Soft Southern Knight says, yes, USA Congress and White House is worthless. They do nothing at all. Same with the Supreme Court. We've lost all faith in our institutions. They are worthless. When's the last time Congress passed a law that helped us? When's the last time they passed a law that helped the super rich or corporations or foreign governments? Endlessly. One law after another. And then the minute they come back to us, they're like, we don't have any money left. We don't have any money left. We gave it all to ExxonMobil and Pfizer and Israel and Intel. There's nothing left for you guys, okay? Corey Brown writes in, knowing the right wing is treating and will use Kirk's murder as a Reichstag moment makes me wonder how long before they pop off, restrict our rights, or both. In my opinion, saying he was assassinated instead of murdered plays into that fire. He was assassinated, Corey. But at the same time, I'm super worried about them taking away our rights. And that's going to be another moment where independents and right-wingers who voted for Trump are going to be tested. So some on the radical right already failed that test, Matt Walsh, etc., and nobody's surprised by that. But the Rogans, the Dillons, etc., how are they going to react when they say, oh yeah, because of the Charlie Kirk murder, you guys don't get to talk anymore, okay? You guys don't get to say this or that, etc. And my guess is they're going to react poorly, that they're not going to like that. And so they're going to be allies. I hope. If not, we're in a lot of trouble. Make It Make Sense wrote in earlier in the show, after what happened to Charlie, this comment section is seeing social media from Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky. I refuse to be associated with a group of such vile humans. They make Bibi look like a saint. Follow up, Cenk, I'm not saying TYT hosts, you and Anna, everyone seems like role models that I wish the body politic would strive to be like. I didn't agree with Charlie on anything, but he was a good man, and our society, our country, and our world is a poorer place without him. And guys, whether you thought he was a good man or not is not relevant. What's relevant is you don't get to murder people for their opinions. Anyway, I love that the overwhelming majority of our audience is right. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and Velvet Exir has just joined at tyt.com/join. We really appreciate it, guys. Anna, what's next?
This next story depresses me so much. I mean, how many figures from like my childhood are gonna like prove to me they're actually pretty terrible in some ways? But anyway, let's get to the next story. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld has unfortunately and tragically reached new levels of depravity, this time by comparing advocates for a free Palestine to literal Ku Klux Klan members. I'm not even exaggerating. So let's get into the details. This happened at an event hosted by Duke University, and it was also sponsored by Shabbat at Duke, as well as the Provost's Initiative on the Middle East and Jewish Student Groups. So he was introducing Omer Shem Tov, a former Israeli hostage who was abducted by Hamas from the Nova Music Festival on October 7th and held captive for 505 days. Now, during his introduction, Jerry Seinfeld told the crowd the following: "Free Palestine is, to me, just, you're free to say you don't like Jews. Just say you don't like Jews. By saying free Palestine," he said, "you're not admitting what you really think. So it's actually, compared to KKK, I'm actually thinking the Klan is actually a little better here because they can come right out and say, we don't like blacks, we don't like Jews. Okay, that's honest." So reporters at the Duke Chronicle reached out to the university for a response, and all their spokesperson said was that Duke does not preview the remarks of speakers who are invited to campus, and the invitation of speakers to campus does not imply any endorsement of their remarks. Okay, it is not difficult to distinguish between a foreign government and a foreign military and the entirety of an identity of a group of people. Okay, for me, it's not hard at all. For me, the criticisms of the Israeli government and the actions they have taken since October 7th, even before October 7th, is not an indictment of Jewish people overall. It is an indictment of the Israeli government and the Israeli military. But you know what, Cenk? Jerry Seinfeld is not stupid. I actually think he's a brilliant man and he knows the difference. He just doesn't like the criticism of Israel. So a very easy way, a very effective way, may I add, to silence critics of Israel's genocidal acts is to just accuse them of hating Jews and being anti-Semites. And I'm disgusted by that, because by doing that, what they are effectively communicating to the world is that anyone who has a problem with genocidal acts is by definition an anti-Semite. And so he is, I don't know whether it's intentional, unintentional. I think it's unintentional. He's unintentionally making anti-Semitism seem like a good thing.
Yeah.
By branding people who have a conscience, who understand morality as anti-Semites.
So in the beginning, when people were going up to random Jewish celebrities and news anchors and hassling them about Israel, I hated it. I was like, what are you doing? You don't know anything about that guy. All you know is that he's Jewish, so what? So don't make assumptions. And so I defended Seinfeld in the beginning. I didn't know his views. So then it started to become a little bit more clear. Back in February, an influencer tried to get him to say free Palestine. Okay, so he doesn't want to say that. Again, that doesn't mean anything. But then Seinfeld added, quote, "I don't care about Palestine." Okay, well, that's kind of weird. We have it. Here, let's watch.
Jerry, can I get a selfie? Sure. Free Palestine. Maybe? I don't care about Palestine. That's sad.
Okay, well, look, if you said that normally, maybe he's joking, but in the middle of a genocide, not a funny joke. And it turns out now, not a joke at all. He really doesn't care about Palestine. And so nobody's talking about globalize the intifada. Nobody's talking about from the river to the sea. Free Palestine is the most benign statement there is. It just means the Palestinians should also be free, right? And so Jerry Seinfeld, it turns out, is a racist and thinks no, Palestinians should be forever enslaved by Israel. And if you want them to be free, you're the Klan. I mean, so I don't know. I don't know if Anna's right or not. I don't know if Jerry Seinfeld is one of the dumbest people in America. And he's like, if you hate Palestinians, that means you're a moral person. They should be forever imprisoned in the occupied territories by my moral beloved Israel, okay? And they should be genocided, and I don't care about them. Or he's like, yeah, of course we're genociding them. We're gonna steal the West Bank. That's why we just did the annex vote. Of course we're gonna steal Gaza, and I love it. And I love the slaughter of the Palestinians. They're dirt, they're like cockroaches. I don't free Palestine. Why would I free a bunch of cockroaches? So either he's a despicably evil guy or he's one of the dumbest guys in America. Which one is it, Jerry?
Well, let me give you another piece of evidence, and then you guys can judge for yourselves what you think his intentions are here. This is a video from last October featuring Jerry Seinfeld cheering on the IDF. Let's take a look.
Jerry, my brother's watching from the Gaza border. Can I get a video for him? Yeah, he's on the Gaza border and staying up late at night to watch. Can I get a video for him? Let's Jerry. Let's go, Red. I'm Yisrael Khan. Let's go, IDF. Jerry! Let's go, IDF.
No, Jerry Seinfeld's racist. It sucks, but yeah, that's what it is. He doesn't see Palestinians as humans. I mean, this is last October. At that point, so many atrocities had been committed against civilians in Gaza.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's ironic.
And that's totally warranted here in America, by the way. It's totally warranted to be an overt, disgusting racist against the Palestinian people. It's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, man. It really is. It's shameful. And it's a stain on this country that we have this type of ideology just freely and openly being communicated and celebrated. You'll have the last word, Cenk. Take it away.
Yeah, so we have a poll on TYT.com. I'm curious if anybody voted with Jerry. Is Jerry Seinfeld a racist for thinking that freeing Palestinians is unacceptable and anti-Semitic? A, yes, he's obviously a racist. B, no, if you want to free Palestinians, that means you're more hateful than the KKK. Oh, look at that. A couple people voted yeah. You're more hateful than the KKK if you support Palestinians. Okay, I hope they're joking, unlike for Seinfeld. I don't know. Anyways.
Well, I hope they eat a peen. How about that?
Okay.
Eat a nice big peen.
Yeah, no, I want to be clear. And so Jerry Seinfeld is actually the equivalent of the Klan. He is. I mean, I'm shocked by that. I loved Seinfeld, the show. And please, Larry David, please don't be racist too. Please, I'm begging you. I believe in you, okay? Please don't say disgusting things like Jerry Seinfeld, Palestinians. Whoever wants the freedom hates the Jews. What? No, you hate the Palestinians. You think that over 64,000 dead Palestinians with 83% of them are civilians. Your beloved IDF did that. You think it's no big deal? You think it's a joke? You think it's funny? It's not, and he's not even joking. He's not joking. He thinks that if you care about Palestinians as human beings, that you hate Jews. What a terrible thing to say, not just about Palestinians, but about Jews. No, I know tons of Jews, family, friends, etc., that don't think that freeing Palestine means that you hate Jews. They think that if you care about decency and humanity and what Jews have gone through throughout their entire history, that you would be against a genocide, not for a genocide. But that's apparently too much to ask for racist Klan member Jerry Seinfeld. So, and last thing, guys, the mindset is clear. He's telling you with everything that he said here. The Israelis who were killed on October 7th, etc., are super precious, and I agree with him on that. But the Palestinians, now 60 times the number have been killed. Now way more than that, but at a minimum 60 times the number of people killed. Nearly 70 times the civilians have been killed, and 500 times the number of children have been killed in Gaza. And when you say that's no big deal and they shouldn't be freed, and the IDF is doing a great job, what you're saying is, I don't care about them. I don't care about their lives. I don't care about their children. I don't care if their children. Remember the decapitated kid? Israel bombed the tent area. They lit everyone on fire, and one kid's head was missing. And Seinfeld looks at that and goes, like they should be free. Bunch of savages, right? No, Jerry, you're the savage. I'm heartbroken. I mean, look, all my heroes are destroyed. Bill Cosby, I used to watch growing up. It turns out he's a monster. Now Seinfeld, it turns out is like one of the most racist guys in America, thinks that we should be slaughtering the Palestinians and that we should never free them. And that if you think that Palestinians are human, you're in the Klan. What kind of a monstrously racist person says that? Apparently the answer is Jerry Seinfeld. So there goes another guy that we thought was a good guy. Turns out he's a terrible, despicable, immoral person.
In the bonus episode that's public for everyone today, we're gonna talk a little bit about how Rabbi Shmuley is exploiting Charlie Kirk's death to make money. I literally could not believe this story. You don't wanna miss it. That and more coming up next, stick around.
On TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. As usual, I'll read a couple of comments to wrap up that section of the show, and then we'll go on to other things. But I just can't get past that Seinfeld's a crazy racist. Like it's
yeah, it sucks.
It really sucks. Okay, like God, you're totally indifferent to that slaughterhouse because I guess he's a Jewish supremacist. That he thinks that Israel and his religion is superior to everyone else, and if you're even slightly offending him, you should be murdered. I don't know. I mean, what does it mean not to free Palestine? What does that mean? And
you know what it means.
You know what it means. You know what it means.
It means what we see right now in the Middle East.
It means
that's what it means.
It means he thinks Palestinians are nothing. Murder them all you like. Who cares? They're not Jewish. They're not Israeli. Who cares? Who would ever care about a non-Israeli? Free Palestine. What a disgusting racist Jerry Seinfeld is. Your Daily Phil says, I hate what Charlie Kirk stood for. I hate that any harm came to anyone because of his platform and rhetoric. I hate that Charlie Kirk was murdered and that his children no longer have a father. His wife no longer has a husband and his parents no longer have a son. See how hate only compounds and gets bigger and bigger and bigger? What good has come from this? What has happened to compassion and empathy? What happened to agreeing to disagree? These questions are not up for debate, and I won't be entertaining any comments. They're intended for us to pause for a moment and think about what we want for our society. We cannot keep fighting each other with violence. Those who do lose the moral high ground and admit ideological defeat. We need to get back to fighting ideas with ideas, knowing we won't always agree. Let's do better, brothers and sisters. I love that. Thank you for that. Spider-Man Dragon said, I couldn't stand Charlie Kirk, but he was still human, just as I wouldn't want any person to die because of their thoughts and speech. Kirk deserved to live until God called him back. His daughter and son deserved a father, just as the Minnesota representatives deserve to live, just as the 20,000 children in Gaza deserve to live. Life is precious, or that's what I was taught. Well, yeah. That's what we were all taught. Well, not apparently. Apparently Jerry Seinfeld's parents were probably monsters and they taught him to hate Palestinians and that murdering them was a great thing to do and terrorism was awesome as long as Israel does it. And that if anybody looks at you slightly strange, try to ruin their life, call them Klan members, have them arrested, fired, destroy them. And then if they complain, go, oh, it's a trope, it's a trope. Just shut up and murdered, you're fired, right? I'm so, God damn it, Jerry, God damn it. God damn it. Why did you have to turn out to be such a disgusting pig racist? Yes, Muslim lives matter. Is that a bare minimum? Bare minimum. And he can't get to a goddamn bare minimum, right? And unfortunately, there are Israeli supporters who really believe that. They believe in their core. Who cares about the Palestinians? Murder their children, who cares? Who cares? When you say that, you're admitting you're a disgusting fascist and that you support terrorism. Jesus Christ. All right, sorry guys, no more comments. Anna, let's go.
All right, let's talk a little bit about how some pretty powerful people have suffered some consequences finally in regard to their close, cozy ties with Jeffrey Epstein. Let's begin with Britain's ambassador to the United States. Peter Mandelson, who happened to be Britain's ambassador to the United States, has just been fired from that position after the true extent of his relationship with child sex predator Jeffrey Epstein was revealed. Now, yesterday, Bloomberg News actually published email correspondences between Mandelson and Epstein, and the contents of their conversations were pretty creepy, pretty disgusting, and somewhat chilling. So it's worth noting that Mandelson's affiliation with Epstein has been known for years. It's just that the extent of that relationship and the type of communication the two had wasn't known until recently. Now, the Daily Mail published a photograph of Mandelson with Epstein together at Little St. James back in 2019. So that's how we knew that they had some sort of relationship. But again, the extent of that relationship is, well, when allegations against Epstein were first made public back in 2006, Mandelson sent the following to Epstein. This is a message he sent Epstein, and it's telling. Reminder, you are fighting back, so you need strategy, strategy, strategy. Remember the art of war. Then, in 2008, after Epstein was convicted of soliciting sex from a minor, Mandelson wrote to Epstein, quote, I think the world of you, gross, I feel hopeless and furious about what has happened. I can still barely understand it. It just could not happen in Britain. That is an indictment of Britain, if that's true. I don't believe it, but
there's another indictment of Britain in this story, but keep going, Anna.
Mandelson wrote that his contact had told him, I will really go for it on your friend now that his case is a bit more realistically salvageable. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead, my bad. So Bloomberg's reporting also revealed that Mandelson had some strange connections to former President George W. Bush. So in early 2008, Mandelson told Epstein of a discussion he had with an unnamed contact who he felt could help extract his friend from his legal difficulties. Mandelson wrote that his contact had told him, I will really go for it on your friend now that his case is a bit more realistically salvageable. I have a hard time believing that that's George W. Bush. He doesn't really speak that way, but nonetheless, a week later, Epstein told Mandelson that an unidentified person referred to only as Mr. Big would meet with Jay Lefkowitz, who was one of the defense lawyers. Lefke is the way Mr. Big refers to him, Epstein wrote. Now, Lefkowitz was also serving in the Bush administration as the official US envoy for human rights in North Korea. While there's no further discussion in the emails about whether that meeting took place, Lefkowitz was in Washington on the next Thursday, January 17th, 2008. Lefkowitz's full schedule in Washington that day isn't public, but years later, he confirmed that he met with Bush at the White House that night. Another cryptic email, another cryptic email came that June as British Prime Minister Gordon Brown prepared to meet Bush in Washington. Epstein messaged Mandelson, your boy is meeting tomorrow with B. If he gets a chance, he could remind Josh Bolton. Josh Bolton was Bush's chief of staff at that time. There's more, but not good, very bad. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, well, so let's remember that during the Bush administration is when they let Epstein off. They gave him a super light sentence where he basically showed up to prison at night like a hotel, and otherwise could go to his house, live in his mansion, and they called it solicitation of prostitution when it was actually rape of underage girls. And the person who did that was Alex Acosta. He later became the labor secretary for Donald Trump, which is strange because he didn't really have anything to do with labor. And Acosta at one point had told an insider, and this got leaked, that it was an intelligence agency that told him to go light on Epstein. So I don't know.
He told.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jake. He actually told a reporter that. And then later, when he was asked about it, he wouldn't confirm or deny. So it's just important to be specific and precise with what happened. Go ahead.
So I don't know if Mandelson and other powerful people are the folks that had Acosta basically let Epstein get off and use their influence, etc. We don't know why, because our government is a bunch of liars. And both under Democrats and Republicans, they've been lying to us the entire time. And they've never prosecuted any of these monsters. And they're never going to prosecute them because they're on the side of the predators. So speaking of which, wait. This guy was Britain's ambassador to the United States now?
Yep.
Why would you take a guy who you know was implicated in Epstein and make him ambassador to the United States? You'd only do that if there were also other important, powerful people who told you to do that, because him being involved in the Epstein case wasn't the bug, it was the feature. They picked him because they knew that he could be trusted to do right by a certain country. And that country is not Great Britain, and it is not America.
Yeah, so I have some more details here. That whole birthday book situation also implicated Mandelson, who wrote in that 10-page, or he wrote a 10-page birthday letter to Epstein for that now infamous, notorious 50th birthday book. In it, he calls Epstein his best pal. In response to these exchanges coming to light, Mandelson has stated, quote, I feel a tremendous sense of regret, not only that I met him in the first place, but that I continued the association and I took at face value the lies that he fed me and many others. Really? You were the one who was telling him you need strategy back in 2006.
I'm shocked and chagrined to find out that there's gambling in this establishment. You're the one who was trying to help him get off on the charges. And I believe that he was in a robe in the picture where he's telling him how great he is in the birthday card and stuff, and how they're besties. So to me, look, we know that there was a lot of people who were kind of literally in bed with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and that whole operation. But the fact that at this late date, the UK made him ambassador to the United States tells me that that's not an accident, that the people who have been hiding the predators all along, the people who did this in the first place, are still firmly in charge.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see if anything else develops with this Epstein situation, because we're getting some information now. Some pretty powerful people are getting implicated in this, and that's good news. All right, well, I want to move on to our final story here. Give me 1 second while I look for it. I wanted to talk a little bit about Rabbi Shmuley and what he was up to yesterday after news broke of Charlie Kirk's death.
Hi, everyone. It's odd to have to make this comment from a hospital where I am right now, but I know Charlie Kirk extremely well. We've been friends for more than a decade. As we pray for his complete recovery in his life, and we should all be praying, I have to say I'm not in any way surprised or shocked. The culture of demonization, especially of pro-Israel activists, and he's so pro-Israel on campus, it's become lethal. And I live with lethal threats every day of my life, and it shocks my wife and my children and all the people around me.
On the day that Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at a public event at a Utah University campus, and before he was announced dead, Rabbi Shmuley proved yet again just how disgusting he really is. He exploited the situation to not only spread propaganda, but to raise money, literally for himself. I'm not exaggerating. So in an X post yesterday, Rabbi Shmuley wrote, "Today, as we witnessed yet another attempt to silence pro-Israel voices, we are reminded of the constant threats facing Rabbi Shmuley. For years, he has stood boldly for Israel and the Jewish people, yet he has been physically assaulted in Vienna, Miami, Sydney, and even in Times Square. The dangers are real, and they only continue to grow. To ensure his safety and his ability to continue this vital work, we urgently need to raise funds for cameras, fencing, and professional security personnel. Without these protections, Rabbi Shmuley and his family remain exposed to unacceptable risks." So I'm guessing that the dildo business isn't bringing in the money, so he's got to capitalize on a tragic event to raise money for his own security.
I just want to be clear, they're kosher dildos.
Oh, okay. I mean, look, I have no problem with the sale of dildos if that's what you're into, but
or
I
kosher
do
ones.
have a problem. Exactly. Look, I do have a problem with exploiting something tragic to make money for yourself. Now, the tweet included a link to a GoFundMe and other links talking about the attacks he's faced, meaning that Rabbi Shmuley has faced, alongside this photo. And as you can imagine, people were not pleased with what Rabbi Shmuley did yesterday. And I am happy to announce that he hasn't really raised anything close to the $500,000 goal that he has. So let's take a look at a screenshot of that. So as of producing this story, he had only raised $756 out of $500,000, meaning $500,000 is his goal. He's trying to raise $500,000. This is crazy. Like, this is crazy, right? Am I being unfair?
No. Are you kidding me? It's Rabbi Shmuley. Of course it's crazy. Who sells kosher dildos and defends genocides? Well, unfortunately, that last one, a lot of people are doing.
Listen.
Yeah.
People need dildos, okay? People need dildos, including religious people who are only kosher. No judgment on that.
Yeah.
But
my God, if that was their only issue, that would be amazing.
Totally.
Yeah. So look, he has no bounds, and I mean he's kind of famous for that. So when I debate him on this Israel issue, usually the #1 comment in the comment section is from other supporters of Israel saying, "Why did you bring on Rabbi Shmuley? He makes us all look so bad," right? And so I've had good debates with him. I've had disastrous debates with him, but it's beyond the pale. But also, there's this underlying non-acknowledgement too, that here's one of the top defenders of the genocide in Gaza, and he's like, oh my God, somebody bumped into me in Times Square. My life is in danger, right? So Charlie Kirk's life obviously was in danger and he did get killed. Was it because of the Israel issue? We have no idea. Rabbi Shmuley has no idea, okay? So instead he assumes that, and then he's using it to raise money for himself. I mean, the reason, my guess as to why he hasn't raised any money is because, of course, the left's not gonna give Rabbi Shmuley any money, and nobody in the middle is going to. But for the right, you look at it, you gotta be even more disgusted than we are. So if you love Charlie Kirk, and then this Shmuley character pops up out of nowhere and goes, oh, he's dead, now give me money. Oh, Jesus Christ, man, have you no decency?
No decency, none at all. It's just, I guess you should just expect this from Rabbi Shmuley at this point. All right, I think we might have time for one more story, and I kind of want to do the Kennedy one. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. I'm gonna wait for our producers to get the elements ready for that because it's a little bit of a curveball. Just give me a thumbs up, Kate, whenever you guys are ready. We're ready. Damn it, I got the best team. Let's do it.
Look, I don't hate anyone, Sean, but Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is a creature or creation of the media. She checks all the boxes. She's young, she's liberal, she's attractive, she's ethnic.
Well, that was Senator John Kennedy, the very Ivy League educated senator who lays on this fake Elmer Fudd accent real thick, essentially calling a member of Congress a manufactured person, essentially. Now, he was speaking with Sean Hannity and also called Ocasio-Cortez other names, including attractive and ethnic. So Kennedy, apparently wanted to discuss his forthcoming book, How to Test Negative for Stupid, and why Washington never will. And I mean, he's telling on himself there. And during the discussion, Hannity brought up the leadership of the Democratic Party as progressive leaders like Bernie Sanders and AOC rally around Zohran Mamdani for New York City mayor. Take a look.
Look at the leadership now of the Democratic Party. You've got AOC flying around in a private jet with Grandpa Bernie to fight the oligarchy. They're, spending $3,500 on hotels and fancy places, and dining out, and living like kings and queens. And okay, that's fine. But I thought they were fighting the oligarchy. Then you got Mamdani. Then you got the squad. Then you got AOC and the squad. Then you got Jasmine Crockett, your friend Pocahontas. Those are the leading voices now of the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer doesn't say anything. He's scared to death of them all.
But there was only one person on Kennedy's mind, it seems, and that was absolutely Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So let's get to his comments.
Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is a creature or creation of the media. She checks all the boxes. She's young, she's liberal, she's attractive, she's ethnic. Her problem is that she's shallow as a puddle. You scratch the surface and you just get more surface. For her recent conduct, which you talked about, she gets and deserves a certificate of hypocrisy. And I would remind her that it's not your beliefs that make you a good person, it's your behavior. Watch what politicians do, not what they say.
Oh, I agree with that, Senator Kennedy. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Maybe a moment of self-reflection would be helpful and useful for Senator Kennedy. Earlier this week, there was some more info released about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that has kind of made her a target of the right wing. According to campaign finance reports, she was apparently staying in style. The New York Democrats campaign spent $3,508.92 at Vdara Hotel and Spa in Las Vegas on March 25th, and that's according to FEC filings. That's a lot of money for that hotel. I'm actually shocked by that. Around the time of the Fighting Oligarchy rally in Tucson, Arizona, she paid the Leo Kent Hotel, a boutique high-rise in Tucson, $3,165.76. Man, I think they were price gouging her. I'm just keeping it real. That's insane. Now, Sanders' campaign, meaning Bernie Sanders' campaign, finance disclosures reveal that his team made payments to some of the same hotels around the same time AOC's team did, but largely spent much less on them. His camp's payments include a $624.28 disbursement at the Leo Kent on April 10th, and 3 payments of $487 each to Videra on March 24th. I don't care.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cenk.
So to me, the hypocrisy of Kennedy is the interesting part. So, but I do want to correct you, Anna. You said Elmer Fudd. I think that it's much more Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh, maybe I'm mixing up my cartoon characters. My bad.
Yeah, and it's relevant actually because, as you pointed out, Kennedy is actually a really smart, well-educated guy. He went to Vanderbilt. He went to University of Virginia Law School, which is a great law school, and he went to Oxford. Right, and I've seen him question judges where I'm like, whoa, he knows what he's talking about, right? And then he goes into campaign mode, and that's when it's hilarious. He purposely dumbs himself down and brings out an even bigger Foghorn Leghorn accent, and he's like, well, let me tell you that. I'm like, come on, brother, come on. You went to Oxford, dude. Okay, so when he says the media created her, okay, now let's talk about that. So at the beginning of AOC, I was there. So one of the founders of Just Democrats, we featured her on 34 times on the Young Turks before her primary win, more than the rest of the media combined. So I am a definitive source on this. The media did not create her. In fact, we couldn't get the media to talk about her during the primary because they were like, oh, Joe Crowley, the king of Queens. Joe Crowley's in leadership in the Democratic Party. Joe Crowley's gonna be the next Speaker of the House. Joe Crowley. And we're like, no, we think AOC can win. And they're like, yeah, right, we're not covering her at all. And in fact, the New York Times, after the primary, when she had the shocking win, self-flagellated because they were like, oh my God, it was a story right underneath our nose and we missed it. I got news for you, New York Times. You're gonna miss it the next time too. And you missed Mamdani, you're gonna miss every single one. And in fact, you were dead set against Mamdani because you hate outsiders, you're elitist pricks, okay? So that's the media. They didn't create AOC. And it's so ironic because he talks about these manufactured candidates. When in reality, so AOC for, you agree with her, disagree with her, that's a different issue, right? But she doesn't take corporate PAC money. And so the folks not taking corporate PAC money, Tom Massey on the right, for example, AOC, Ro Khanna on the left, etc. They're the ones, agree or disagree, are relatively honest and unmanufactured by the donors. On the other hand, crooks like Senator Kennedy are like, oh, you're gonna give me money. Oh, actually, when he's talking to the oil companies, he's like, oh yes, I do declare, I'll be taking a big check from you. The bigger the check, the more propaganda you will get. And then a reporter walks in, he's like, oh yeah, oil, love it. Okay, so no, he's a creature of the donor class. All he does is serve them. All he does is betray you. Every single thing he said about hypocrisy, manufactured candidates, listen to what they do and not what they say, applies in spades to Senator Kennedy. Oh, I'm the average guy. Oil companies an $18 billion subsidy on top of a $35 billion subsidy. Give corporations everything, give Israel everything, give foreign governments corporations. And the average guys, take away his Medicaid, take away his SNAP, okay? Tax cuts for the rich, okay? That's him behind the scenes. So Senator Kennedy, who the hell do you think you're kidding? We see you, Foghorn.
We do see him. All right, that does it for the main show, but you guys need to stick around because there's gonna be an awesome interview coming up. And then after that interview, you should watch me on CNN.
Couldn't agree more. So Anna's on at 10 o'clock tonight on CNN, so you're gonna check that out. But you're gonna stay right here because the rest is also public. So it's a spectacular day that you would normally, this is just for the members, but we're doing it for everybody. Peter Beinart wrote a great book and is wonderful on the issue of Gaza and separately it out from religion in a beautiful way. So I don't want you to miss that interview. He was on the Daily Show recently too. Had a great conversation with Jon Stewart, and we're going to try to have a great conversation when we come back. Thank you.
You're smoking some of the best dope God ever put breath in. You're Willie Nelson high.
All right, back on the Young Turks. We got a great interview for you guys. Now, Peter Beinart has Beinart's notebook on Substack. He's actually one of the better thinkers, really, throughout my career. I don't know if Peter knows that I think that about him, but he just found out. He has a new book out, Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza, A Reckoning. I really want to talk to him about that. And he's also the editor-at-large at Jewish Currents. So, Peter, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thank you.
So, Peter, I've always loved your work, smart, compassionate, moral, and you did it again with this book. First, tell the audience what you mean by being Jewish after the destruction of Gaza.
Well, I mean, I think that what Israel has done in Gaza, which is, as you know now, kind of widely recognized as a genocide, is not just a moral catastrophe. It's a spiritual catastrophe for those of whom try to live in accordance with Judaism. What does it mean for us when a state that speaks in the name of the Jewish people, that deploys all of the symbols and many religious texts of our tradition, is doing that in the pursuit of mass ethnic cleansing and indeed of genocide? I think this is going to be the greatest spiritual crisis for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And I think we've barely begun to grapple with it. For Americans, it will be another massive kind of crisis in terms of kind of what it means for any possibility of America having any legitimacy in the world. But in a way, the Jewish question is an even more intimate question for me. And that's why I wrote this book specifically towards other Jews.
Yeah, so, and that's why it's an extra blessing. So I want to break it down, but first, it's interesting because Yuval Harari, and my other favorite writer, also said the same exact thing you did, or it feels like it was the same thing, where he said, look, we had 2,000 years and then some of Jews being the victims of injustice and fighting past it and then helping others. And I'm adding now, right? Helping the civil rights movement and helping, by the way, Muslims during the Muslim ban that Trump tried, et cetera. And the ADL was great on that. And he's like, now after Gaza, are we going to be known as militaristic? I don't think he used the word oppressors, but something along those lines. And is that how the world is going to see Jews going forward? So what's your sense of that? How much damage has been done to how people, and there's a couple of different things here, how people perceive Judaism and then Judaism itself, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I think there has been a kind of a cancer that, especially since 1967 in the United States, has really entered into the American Jewish establishment and American Jewish discourse. And it is essentially the centrality of the idea that allegiance to the state of Israel is the definition of what makes you a good Jew, a Jew in good standing. And so in many Jewish communities in the United States, for really most of my life, the question that people ask about someone and whether they're living the right kind of Jewish life is not whether they keep Shabbat or whether they keep kosher or whether they visit the sick or whether they give a charity to the poor, wash the bodies of the dead, any of these things which are ancient and central to Judaism, but it's whether they basically unconditionally support this state. And I argue in the book that I think actually is a kind of an idolatry. It's a kind of worship of the state, the treating of a state, which is something human made, as if it is a God, it is godlike. How often are we told before we can enter any conversation about Israel and Palestine, we have to accept Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. Jewish tradition, as I read it, does not believe that states have inherent rights or inherent dignity. It's human beings who have the right to exist. States are only instruments for the protection of human beings. But in so much Jewish discourse, that has been completely flipped. So Israel's right to exist with this supremacist political system is considered sacrosanct, right? The right of Palestinians to exist, to live, is considered much less important.
Yeah, so there's some Orthodox sects, I lose track, I'm sure you know, obviously, that were always against the creation of Israel. And I always thought it was kind of funny, right? Like, oh, those are Jews against Israel. But it turns out they might have been right. And that's why we have the First Amendment in America, because when you combine state and religion, it poisons both.
Yes, I mean, there were a variety of reasons and kind of textual readings about this, but there was also a suspicion of nationalism, right? And of the impact of nationalism. We live in an age now, this is not just a Jewish thing, I think, of extreme, horrifying hyper-nationalism. I mean, and I look at some American conservative Christians and I think these people seem to act as if you don't have an American passport, you're worthless. This seems also to me a kind of an idolatry, a worship of the state, and a losing sight of the as Abraham Joshua Heschel said, the only thing that's created in the image of God is the human being. And so yes, I think some of those Orthodox anti-Zionists had some of that understanding. And now, thank goodness, there's also a younger group of people, mostly progressive American Jews, who are saying, our belief is in equality under the law. We believe that human beings are created equal in the image of God, and that states should treat people equally under the law. That's what we're fighting against the Republican Party, over in the United States. And if we believe that, how can we possibly support a supremacist state in Israel and Palestine?
Yeah, so I want to get to that because ironically, I think you're tougher on Israel than I am when it comes to the ultimate, fix for this problem. But we'll come back to that in a second. Well, one thing I'm super interested in is the reaction of the Jewish community to this at large, right? So I'm not in the Jewish community. I don't, have my friends are Jewish, but it still doesn't. I don't go to synagogue. I don't go to temple, right? I'm not in the community. So. First, what's your sense of how it is these days? Like when we first, obviously after October 7th, 100% united, there's a tragedy, horrible, all of that, obvious, right? Now, the tragedies and the slaughter began pretty quickly thereafter. But again, all right, buffer zone for a period of time, 2 months, 6 months. There shouldn't be. There should never be a genocide. There should have never been that slaughter. But at least psychologically, emotionally, you need time to process it. And people are, the ethnic bias is the biggest bias. I know it applies to Turks just as much as anyone else, et cetera, right? But now 2 years in, like, so I don't want to make assumptions. What percentage, and I know you're guessing, right? Obviously, right? And it's super rough. But roughly what percentage of the Jewish community now goes, no, this isn't right. This isn't what we wanted. And what percentage are still like, nope, Israel's the answer, I forgot the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer that question. We don't have great polling. The kind of the questions that are asked in polling often don't really get at these things. I would first of all note just actually that there were people who started protesting within just days after October 7th, and many of those were Jewish-led protests because I think they weren't. I don't think it was because they didn't understand the horror of October 7th, but I think they understood what Israel was likely to do because Israel made that pretty clear from very early on. I think that there are a lot of people who there's one group of people who initially supported Israel's, military assault on Gaza after October 7th, and over time have grown disillusioned with it. But I think there's a more fundamental divide even underneath that, which is basically about the basic nature of the state. I mean, and I think it runs often along generational lines, and it's extremely divisive within many, many Jewish families. Support for the state of Israel was once something that you kind of tended to unite American Jews. Now I think it's actually something that really often divides American Jews, but it's concealed a little bit because you see these Jewish, organizational leaders going on TV, and they like to speak as if they represent the entire community, as if someone kind of made them pope, and they'll say the Jews feel this way. But we have polling which suggests that, for instance, among young Jewish New Yorkers, Zohran Mamdani has very, very widespread support, and Zohran Mamdani is basically an anti-Zionist, right? I mean, that's part of the reason he's so controversial, right? And so I think that there's a much fiercer and deeper divide than often the American Jewish establishment wants to admit, and often sometimes that the American media tends to admit.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I grew up in a town that was nearly half Jewish, roughly speaking. We were Jewish enough, I've told the story many times before on this show, that I was on the football team, and when other teams threw bagels at us, right? And it was the 80s, it was Jersey, it happened, okay? So I but the Jewish community I grew up in had two traits, okay? One was the wonderful decency and morality that you're talking about and that I've seen in Jewish tradition over and over again. And it's not just the being great at the civil rights movement, looking out for other victims of injustice, et cetera, but it's also questioning the rabbi, emphasizing education. We don't listen blindly to authority figures, and because that's what among the many reasons why is because that's partly what led to the Holocaust and the pogroms and all that. When you blindly listen to authority figures, right? So I love that culture, but it also layered on top of that was a love of Israel and an unquestioning love of Israel. So now back then I didn't know that was in conflict, but honestly, it's always been in some degree of conflict, right? But now after October 7th and the genocide that ensued after that, it's an open conflict, right? You can't say anymore, I'm for the victims of injustice and open-minded and open-hearted, et cetera. But it's 64,000 dead Palestinians at a minimum is not enough. I want more. 20,000 Palestinian kids dead. Not enough, I want more. No, that's in conflict. You can't have both, right? So it's forcing people into a decision. And I'm just trying to get a sense of, I know the young are great. Jewish leaders in the peace movement, we've been given credit to from day one. They're great, they've always been great. So those are not in question. But in terms of like the heart of the Jewish community, where I'm trying to ascertain, and the reason I'm asking, Peter, is because it's politically so important, because Jewish Americans can make such a giant difference here. So to what degree have they been moved by your argument and the folks on your side?
Yeah. Look, to be fair, I don't hear a lot of people saying we want 20,000 more dead, but unfortunately the policies that they support end up bringing us to that that situation, right? Because if you support continuing American arms sales and continuing Israel's assault on Gaza, that's where you're going to get, even if you say you don't want that. I think that the bulk of power in the American Jewish community still rests with people who basically support Israel unconditionally. They tend to be much better organized. They're older. They have more resources. But the good news is that I don't think that we have to have the balance of power in the Jewish community. Those of us who have a kind of more equality-oriented perspective. What we need to do is align with people of all different backgrounds, right? In a movement that brings together Palestinians and Jews and people of every background around the basic principle that human beings deserve equality under the law, they deserve freedom. And what I see, I don't think the pro-Palestinian movement is perfect. I don't agree with every particular single slogan at every rally, but I think it has some of the dynamics of the great moral movements of our time, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, the anti-apartheid movement. When I go around the country, I see people of all different backgrounds coming together around a basic solidarity about the idea of how human beings should be treated, and that gives me hope.
Yeah, I hear you, but ironically, I'm not getting the hope I was hoping for. So because I was hoping that at this point that a good percentage of the older folks had moved. And because I've seen in my life, middle-aged, first it was young Jews, then it was middle-aged Jews, and now some of the older Jews are moving and going, no, I didn't ask for this. And so, and nobody got my permission, and no, this is not part of Jewish tradition. This is terrible, right?
Yeah.
So, but what you're saying leads me to believe, no, the power center has not moved much.
Look, the power center is based in, because American politics is so deeply corrupt, the power center within any is always essentially where the most money is, right? And that tends to be on the right on every issue. But there are very significant cultural changes. I'll just give you an example. Jerry Nadler, right, who's stepping down as the congressman in Manhattan, right, has really been at the absolute center of the organ of kind of American Jewish politics for decades now. Nadler has just said that for the first time ever, he is going to vote to condition military aid to Israel. For someone like Jerry Nadler, that's a massive shift. Even just a year or two ago, the number of Democrats in Congress who would have supported that was very, very small. Now it's become maybe half the Democrats in Congress. I interviewed a rabbi named Ismar Shor. He was for a couple weeks ago. He's in his 90s. His family fled the Holocaust. He was for 20 years the chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary, which is where the conservative movement within Judaism produces its rabbis. An extremely eminent figure within American Jewish life. What he said about this as a stain on Judaism, about literally the way that the synagogues will have to reckon in the same way that the Catholic Church reckoned with its horrors. There are people who come from the center who are also rethinking things.
Yeah. Okay, so then you got folks like Jerry Seinfeld. So we just covered it on the show today. Somebody asked him about free Palestine. No, nobody asked him actually. He was giving a speech at Duke.
Yes,
he voluntarily, said, and he said, if you say free Palestine, that means you hate Jews and you're worse than the Klan. So I find that to be mental. Like there's something deeply wrong with you, that if you think freeing Palestinians means you hate Jews, that's not just a slight on Palestinians, that's a slight on Jews, right? That if you love Jews, you have to imprison and enslave Palestinians. That's so insane to me. But I've seen the same kind of bias again in the Turkish community, right? So how is it being Jewish within the Jewish community these days when you are in favor of freeing Palestine? How do you have conversations with people like Jerry Seinfeld, whose brain apparently has melted?
I mean, look, I think the most fundamental thing that affects people is whether they actually have interactions with Palestinians that require them to listen to Palestinians. I don't know Jerry Seinfeld, but my assumption would be that Jerry Seinfeld has never read a book by a Palestinian author. He's never seen a film by a Palestinian. He's never had a serious political conversation with a Palestinian, in which a Palestinian has said to him, "This is what happened to my family in 1948 when we were expelled by Israel. This is the consequences for my life. This is what it's like to live as a Palestinian under a condition that even Israel's own human rights organizations call apartheid. And what happens, unfortunately, in many parts of the Jewish community, I imagine this was true for Jerry Seinfeld, is people are constantly talking about Palestinians all the time without listening to Palestinians. And that is a recipe for dehumanization. The people who have come to a different view are those who actually engage with Palestinians and listen to them. And then I think they're able to overcome this kind of dehumanization, which is true in many, many different communities, the tendency to dehumanize the adversary. But when you look them in the eye and listen to them, I think that starts to melt away.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little bit more heartbroken, and not just about Seinfeld because I grew up watching Seinfeld, but by a community that I loved and has been great to me, and I believe in them. So as they continue to not bend, I get heartbroken again and again and again, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, but I just think it's important to remember that in some sense, every community, racial, religious, ethnic community is divided by questions of values, and so it's always an illusion to think that there is some kind of unanimity within a population because they share some identity. Even though Jews may share a common set of traditions and a common set of experiences, we interpret those in dramatically different ways, right? And I see this in community after community, right? And so to me, the question, I think that non-Jewish people who care about Jews, and I'm glad they care about Jews, it's an illusion to think that you can stand in solidarity with Jews, right? What you have to do is you have to make your own decision about what are your values. You can't outsource your conscience. And then what you will find is that there are Jews who share those values, which are basically about human equality, and there are Jews who don't, just like there are Christians who do and Christians who don't, and Muslims who do and Muslims who don't, and Hindus who do and Hindus who don't. We're fully human, so we're no different than anybody else in that regard.
Yeah, so I of all the things we agree on, I couldn't agree more on that. Like that's the biggest agreement we have, of course. So first of all, it's irrational and honestly unintelligent to think that anybody in a different religious or racial group is different. No, we're all the same. We're all the same species, right? Obviously, right? So what happens is cultural shifts throughout time. And really, it's more about power than it is about any particular religion or race, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so this is just and sometimes a matter of literally geography, which Harari writes about brilliantly. And so, okay, so I'm going to get to Israel in a second because you and I think, disagree on how to fix it, and that's an interesting conversation. But last thing on the community, and so as Peter is saying here, there is no the community, there is no the Jews, right? Everybody's different, and it's a variety of things. So when we talk about the community, we're in that case, I mean the power center, right? The folks who are exhibiting political power at this point, et cetera. So and we're both saying, like, or I shouldn't put words in your mouth. I was hoping for better from that portion of the community. Haven't gotten it yet, but
yeah. But I think it's also just. I mean, I think part of it is we need to remember. I mean, it would be a wonderful thing if having been historically victimized, immunized people from victimizing others, right? But unfortunately, that's not the case, right? It's not the case with Jews. It's not the case even in families. We see tragically that that's not the case, right? And so again, I just think that it's I wish this were the case as well, but there have always been Jews. I mean, my family is South African, right? That almost when Nelson Mandela was prosecuted at the Rivonia trial in 1964, all of the white defendants sitting alongside him were Jews, which was a source of immense pride for me growing up. But you know what? The apartheid prosecutor was Jewish as well, right? So wherever there are great moral struggles where Jews have access to power, you will see some Jews choosing the path of power and oppression and other Jews resisting it.
Again, of course, right? So in the civil rights movement, some of the top leaders were Jewish. On the other hand, Roy Cohn was Jewish. So
100%.
Right, and there's great Turks and there's evil Turks. Of course, right?
Yes.
So all right, last thing on the community, and then I want to go to Israel real quick. So what has been the reaction that you have gotten personally? Do people get it and they go, oh, Peter, I know you mean well, but God, you're so misguided. or hey, you know what? Thank you for at least representing this side. And I know the reaction is going to be different based on who you're talking to, but give us a general sense of it.
Yeah, I would say there's a range. I mean, there are people for whom, there are people who see this, people like me as traitors, right? And see that Jews, and so nobody likes a traitor. And there are other people who might accept that I'm arguing from a position of goodwill, but they think that I'm deeply, deeply naive in my view of the world and my view of Palestinians. And then there are other people who feel appreciative because they feel like they've been so upset and alienated themselves, and they appreciate the fact that they're seeing articulated some of this alienation. Again, oftentimes it's on generational lines. Sometimes, a lot of times, I've had people say, I'm giving this book to my father or my uncle or my grandmother so that we can have a conversation about this because the generational divide is so great.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the book is Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza: A Reckoning. And of course, Peter also writes on Substack at Beinart Notebook. So Peter, then let's move over to, and by the way, you had a great conversation with Jon Stewart where you guys, had the same experience because you think about it in the same moral way. Again, I'm not allowed to say it, but if I was allowed to say it, I'd say I think you guys are closer to the real Jewish tradition, at least the one that I am familiar with. But anyways, that's for others to decide. Okay, so let's move to Israel. I'm in favor of a two-state solution. You're saying one state. So to make the case for one state.
Sure, I guess for me, less important than whether it's one state or two states is that I believe that wherever Jews and Palestinians live together, they should live under the same law. That I don't believe in states that give certain people legal supremacy based on religion or ethnicity or race. So I don't believe in the idea of a Jewish state in the same way I don't believe in the idea of a Hindu or Christian or Muslim state, because I think that fundamentally violates the core principle of liberal democracy, which is equality under the law. So that's my fundamental problem. I think that Palestine, one of the basic ideas behind the idea of a Jewish state is it has to have a large Jewish majority, because if you don't have a large Jewish majority, Jews won't be running things. Well, if we think about it in the United States, who are the Americans who talk about maintaining our demographic majority, right? Those aren't people that we share values with. So if I don't like Tucker Carlson and all these guys talking about maintaining a white Christian majority in the United States and having an immigration policy based on that, how could I support that principle in Israel? Especially because Israel, more than half the Palestinian population in 1948 was expelled. And in order to maintain a Jewish majority, you have to say that none of those people or their children or grandchildren have the right to come back. How can I tell those people that I, as a Jew, have the right to return to this place after 2,000 years, but they can't return after 75 years? It seems to me to violate the principles of human equality that I believe in everywhere. I can't make an exception for my own people if I genuinely believe in this principle.
Okay, I hear you, and especially now, I've come to believe that, yeah, an ethno-state is just a disastrous idea. And I'm an atheist, and so Muslim states, I do not want to live in something that calls itself a Muslim state or any kind of state. But if you say it about, of course, a Jewish state, then they're going to call you an anti-Semite, blah blah blah, etc. Right? But so I get it. Not a great idea to begin with, because you're going to have to maintain your majority somehow. And that's going to be a problem, and it makes it racial and discriminatory by definition, right? So I get it, and I'm convinced of that. But the reality on the ground is, Israel is never ever going to accept a one-state solution. They're never ever going to willingly be outvoted by the Palestinians. So it's not realistic, is it?
Well, look, at this point, certainly not. Nor is a two-state solution realistic. There's almost nobody in his mainstream Israeli politics today who supports a sovereign Palestinian state, and Israel is racing to make one impossible with massive settlement growth and is on the verge of annexing a lot of the West Bank. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but I would just add this one cautionary note. It was inconceivable to most white Americans as late as the 1940s that we would have an army where it was routine for white soldiers to take orders from black officers. as late as the 1980s, it was inconceivable to most white South Africans that you could have an election that would produce a black man be the president of that country. Great movements for justice. It was inconceivable when I was growing up that the Soviet Union would not dominate Eastern Europe. Great movements can make something that is inconceivable in one moment in history conceivable in the next. I don't know whether this will happen in this case. It could be that we who believe in Jewish and Palestinian liberation fail, and that Israel succeeds in destroying much of the Palestinian population. But I think we have to fight to make the impossible possible, and I think we have precedents of movements for justice that have been able to do that in circumstances where the prospects looked just as dire.
Yeah, so I hear you on that, but let me ask you one last hypothetical. So the Arab coalition basically has a peace plan that certainly I would take. And the core of it, if we're just cutting to the chase, is two-state solution, no right of return for the Palestinians, but they get West Bank and Gaza Strip. They don't get all of it, but they get some healthy percentage that they could live with, right? Barely live with. I would take that deal. Would you take that deal?
Well, it's really up to the Palestinian people to decide what they want. I mean, the Arab League initiative, which was, comes out of from 2003, actually calls for a Palestinian state on the entirety of the West Bank and Gaza, including East Jerusalem, and what they call a just and agreed upon solution to the refugee question. So it doesn't concede quite as much as what you're suggesting. Now, it might be in negotiations that Palestinians do decide that they would be better off accepting, giving up on the right of refugee return and accepting a state on just the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, or even some smaller amount of that with land swaps. But there has to be a legitimate process by which Palestinians come to that conclusion. And part of the problem is that Palestinians are not allowed to choose their leaders. Most of their most legitimate, popular leaders are sitting in jail. So if Palestinians make that decision that that's what they want, right? Just like in any movement of people who are denied basic freedoms, they decide they're going to make certain political concessions for the sake of reality, then I think that's legitimate. But I don't think it can be imposed upon them. I think Palestinians have to decide that for themselves. And it's also important to recognize that right now, a Palestinian state is not on offer. It hasn't been on offer at least for 15 years for Palestinians.
Well, obviously it's worse than that because the Israeli government voted to not ever allow a Palestine. So, you hope that they reverse that, but the current Israeli position is, no, we're going to imprison them, enslave them, whichever word you want to use, for the rest of time. Which is, again, it's given Jewish history, that is a shocking statement to make. That given what's happened to Jews throughout history, given what happened to Jews in Egypt, given what is said in Passover dinner, it's unbelievable, right?
Yes, you're right. But again, Judaism is a vast and ancient tradition. So we have voices that speak in incredibly powerful terms. These are the ones that mean the most to me about the inherent idea that all human beings are created equal in the image of God, that we should always remember that we were strangers in the land of Egypt. But it's also the case that if you read Jewish texts, if you read Deuteronomy, if you read Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, you'll see things that may sound very genocidal. I mean, when Benjamin Netanyahu talked about Amalek and describes the Palestinians as Amalek, that's also quoting Torah. So again, just like Christians or Muslims and everything, we have an ocean of different voices within our tradition. The question is, which ones are we going to prioritize? What are our basic values? And that struggle is very, very, very fierce, I think, right now among Jews in the United States in particular.
Yeah, all right, one last question. And by the way, on the peace settlement, of course it's up to the Palestinians. And Israel has managed it so that you can't find a Palestinian leader to negotiate with because they've just labeled all of them terrorists, right? So then by definition, they don't allow for a negotiation, et cetera. And they say they don't ever want to give it anyway. But anyways, I would swap a little bit of land, not much at all. I would swap right of return and I would take the deal if it was up to me, because for God's sake, separate them, stop fighting, stop killing each other. And obviously the Palestinians need a state. Are they never gonna have a state? That's insane, that's an insane position, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the question is, I think for me, the principle is that Palestinians deserve to be citizens of a state, whether that's their own independent state or whether that's the state in which they live now, which is the state of Israel. And they need to be citizens of a state. That's the basic foundation for having political rights.
Yeah. And if they don't want a two-state solution, then of course, then your side begins to win because it is one state. They're just drawing lines, right? And it's kind of saying like, okay, these are the ghettos, whether you fill in the blanks for whatever analogy you'd like from the past. And we've confined the Palestinians to these ghettos where they have no rights, and we could starve them anytime we want. We could kill them, detain them. They have no rights at all. And if that's Israel's plan, and if you're supporting Israel's plan to keep them in permanent ghettos, it's A, not going to work. It's B, it's disastrously immoral, right? And C, it's gonna lead to a one-state solution because at some point, people are gonna go, well, they exist. Are you gonna give them rights or are you not gonna give them rights? And if you say you're never going to give them rights, then you're a dictatorial government. And you're a despotic government.
Right, and I think again, unless you think you can do to Palestinians what we did in this continent to Native Americans and destroy the population, which is what I think the Israeli government would like to try to do. If you don't do that and you're having to live alongside, and God forbid Israel would be able to do that, that's what we must fight against. But if you're going to be living alongside Palestinians, I think a situation where you live alongside people who you brutally oppress is less safe for everybody. I think societies are safer when everyone has a voice in government. And I think that the people tend to take up arms when they have no nonviolent mechanism of having the government listen to them.
Yeah, all right, so the last thing is the one that some would consider even more controversial. So, look, so does AIPAC and the Israeli lobby have a disproportionate influence on Congress? I'm not asking that question to you because that's an empirical question. And the answer is yes, overwhelmingly not close. Just like the big pharma does, big oil does, et cetera, right? So, okay, is there any recognition, again, in the power centers of the community that is driving a lot more anti-Semitism? That people are seeing, oh yeah, AIPAC is clearly buying the members of Congress. Members of Congress are clearly doing what they are told by the donors, as they do with every donor class. Yeah, but they are also doing it here, right? And that is making people very, very angry. And and then of course folks say, oh no, that's a trope. But except it's actually happening here. So is there any recognition that they're actually accidentally driving up anti-Semitism?
I mean, I think that a lot of people are uncomfortable saying that publicly because they don't want to be giving the impression that justifies anti-Semitism, right? That the anti-Semites aren't responsible. Ultimately, if you're an anti-Semite, you're responsible for being anti-Semitic. But the way I would put it is, if we want to fight against anti-Semitism, right, which I think we need to do in partnership with all the other different kind of communities who are suffering bigotry, this is a terrible, terrible way to fight anti-Semitism, because what you do is you separate Jews from other people who need to be struggling for the principle of equality. And you basically have Jewish organizations go in partnership with these authoritarian, supremacist Republican Party, Trump groups, right? And so then you have them, destroying American universities in the name of keeping Jewish students safe, even though the vast majority of Jews on these campuses don't want the Trump administration to cut off and start censoring and destroying these universities. And you also have a situation, right, in which people start to hate AIPAC for the same reason that they hate all of these corrupt lobbies in Washington, because they're distorting American politics, undermining American democracy, and making it such that people's votes don't matter. And that's not ultimately in the best interests of American Jews. I mean, American Jews have prospered in America as America was moving towards greater democracy, greater equality under the law, right? This turn to corrupt American politics and move it in a less and less democratic direction to make us less and less of a free society is very bad for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, I love that your voice is out there, Peter, and please keep going. Thank you for writing the book. Thank you for, and not just to move fellow Jewish Americans in the right direction, the more moral direction, in my opinion, and for whatever it's worth, the more Jewish direction, in my opinion. but also for allowing us who want to fight against anti-Semitism to be able to point to folks like you and go, don't make assumptions, right? So just because somebody's given money to AIPAC doesn't mean that they represent all Jews. Just because Mossad or IDF did something, they didn't call Peter Beinart, they didn't call John Stewart, they didn't call Dave, Ben, my friends, and say, oh, can I have permission to do this? No, they don't represent all of you guys, and thank you for being a shining light that is a good example to others.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, you got to check out the book, Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza, A Reckoning by Peter Beinart. Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.